All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. All right, it's Friday night, and we're going to be doing the Law of One, right? Welcome. So, I was just going to say, I don't think we are live on, but we are on X, Twitter. So I am live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter today because Facebook kept having issues with the chats that were in here. So everybody share this out on Facebook because I'm not now live on two places. I'm only live on Orion Rising over there. However, I am live on Twitter for the first time. Actually, I went live one other time, but I wasn't doing it regularly. So now I'm going to start doing that just as Elon Musk has decided that he's going to start charging everyone money because that's the only way he can think of to get rid of all the robots, let's see, having everybody authenticate their account won't do the same thing. So yeah, we have to charge money. So once Elon Musk starts charging money, I will no longer be on Twitter because I'm not going to pay for something that has been free since the company was invented. That would be like Facebook. If they all of a sudden start charging me money, I'll stop talking on their platform too, because there's other platforms out there who want money and revenue from advertising and things like that, but they get greedy. Instead of having that, why doesn't he put advertisement on Twitter like everyone else does on their platforms to make his money, right? He's making money anyways, hand over fist. So you know that there's no commercials there. The only way that they're making money on Twitter is they're collecting your data and selling it to people, just like everyone else is doing. So they're already making money. And all the other companies that are out there who want, bots to be on there, like Google and Meta, they've seemed to be able to figure out the problem by simply saying, well, all of a sudden, as of this date, everybody who logs in has to then prove that they're a person and not a robot. Otherwise, your account gets deleted. I remember when Facebook did that, and they do that usually like once a year. They make you log in and authenticate yourself. Okay, so that's not what he's chosen to do. He's the only way we can get rid of those bots is to start charging people money. Oh, it'll be a small fee. Yeah, everything's a small fee. Under $10. Yeah, $9.99, $8.99, $7.99. I'm not going to pay $7.99 a month just so that I can post to something on the internet on Twitter. I'll go to another site that's free. There's like 100 million apps on the face of the earth for platforms that are hungry, that want people up there that aren't charging you money to be there. I'll leave these platforms and let them die like the dinosaurs that they are. Facebook will go by the way of what was the name of that other platform? MySpace. MySpace has tried to fix itself and turn itself into a sharing platform like Google, but no one's going back there, so it's tiny. So, you know what? There's platforms out there that are doing it, just like with Rumble and those places where they want to charge me money to post my shit. I'm not doing it. Right? Why would I do that? If you start paying for everything, they have hidden fees everywhere, and then you don't realize that you're paying, and then they're charging you for absurd shit. It's bad enough that they have you sold on car insurance. Then the car insurance companies went to the states, like here in the state of California, and obviously paid them off, because then it became a law that you had to have auto insurance to make sure that if you're driving on the streets and you get in a wreck with somebody and it's your fault, you can pay for it. I get that. But then all of a sudden you have all these other insurance companies that are like, your car's going to break down and it's not going to be covered under your insurance because your insurance is just for car crashes. So pay us money so you have money so that we can pay it for you. Your life insurance, or your health insurance. Your health insurance company doesn't cover 100% of everything. So pay us money so that if something happens to you, because it will, and you'll need to have money, we'll have money to pay it for you, so you won't have to pay out of your pocket. But pay us up front a fee every month. And we hope you never get injured, because we don't want you to collect the money. It's the same thing with life insurance. It's the same scam they're playing with Social Security. pay into this. They hope you die before you get to collect it. When all the people are collecting it, they raise the limit on age and limit the age on your life insurance, on all this stuff, because all of that's just a scam to make money. So now you got Elon Musk going, you know what, I've taken a loss when I bought this. And the only way I can figure out to get rid of the bots is not by authentication, something simple, by making everybody, when they log in. As of January 2024, every person who logs in has to prove they're a human. That's it. Bots go away. Nope. Got to charge you money because somehow bots have identification now. Well, if bots have identification, then that means that the people who program that for the bots are going to program a bank account for them. Do you see? Oh, no, they won't do that because they don't want to have to pay money. Well, no one else wants to pay money either. They'll leave your platform, ignore you, and they'll go and put bots on other platforms that aren't doing anything to solve it. So there's hidden fees in everything. Literally, I was just talking to Cassie and I were talking about this, and literally, right after we got done talking, I said, I wish that people would do something about this to stop doing that. Then I find out that same day, I turn on the news at like 5 p.m. I don't remember what time it was. Doesn't matter. Somewhere 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, somewhere during the day, I turned on the news. And guess what? The company, and I forget the name of it right off the top of my head, but the company that owns Fortnite, one of the most popular video games on the planet, just lost a lawsuit and was ordered to pay $550 million to the people who played Fortnite because they were tricking people into buying stuff from Fortnite for your character without realizing that they were charging a credit card, and people claimed that and sued, and the courts agreed. So companies are doing this. I was complaining like Amazon Prime. My publisher tried to do that with me, and I'm not going to name my publisher because right now I want them to publish my book. So if I piss them off, they'll be like, we're not going to publish your book, and all the money I just fucking gave them will disappear. So, but they said to me, I'll tell you what, we're going to give you a deal on the editing for your book. Okay. And we're going to give you this great deal. And it's just like they're like a fucking used card salesman. I know how it works. I was in sales. Right. So I know how it works. I had to talk to my supervisor, which he just went on hold and went and talked to somebody else or took a piss or got something to eat and came back because he's already approved to do this. But he said, I'm going to give you this special deal and we're going to cut your cost in half because you published a book with us before and you're going through all of this. And you know what? And we care about you. So here's the deal. We'll give you this price for your editing. That's half the cost of your editing if you go to our website and sign up for this app that's on there or this website that's on there and create an account there, which is going to cost me money per month. And they have all these people that are there to have podcasts advertising and telling you how to promote your book. So I'm like, oh, okay. So you're telling me I can go through the self-checkout over there if I want to. So I have to do all the work for myself and bag my own shit and ring my own stuff up. And you're okay with that, but you also want to charge me a fee to actually do that. So you guys don't want to have to, and then you're going to try and sell me a package later, which you already sold me in the package that I have for my book that has advertising in it to get my name out there, to help me promote my book, which I already paid you like $1,000 for. And now you want to charge me per month to go and watch other products that your company has that you're not telling people about unless they go to this place to watch this podcast. So these people make money that work for you. That's what you're telling me. And that's a quid pro quo. You're telling me that I can only get this deal if I do this. Well, sir, you can just go and then, sign up and then immediately cancel it. Okay, let's just pretend I did that. How about I just tell you I just did that and just canceled it? You don't know the difference. So, okay, it's done. So let's do this. And he was like, well, wait a minute. No, you have to go. And I'm like, okay, so I want to get this on record because I know you're recording this. You're telling me I can't get this price unless I sign up for your monthly fee at your website for these podcasts. Well, no, sir, you can do that, but you can also cancel at any time. Then why are you requiring me to do it? That's a quid pro quo. You're extorting me. You're actually telling me I can't get this deal unless I start paying you guys more money for something else. I want that said for the record because I'm going to sue your ass over that because that's illegal. You're extorting me. And then you go, oh, no, I'll tell you what. No. I didn't realize you were going to be so so animate about that. How about we just don't worry about that, and you just promise that you'll go there and take a look? I'm like, yeah, that's a little bit more like it. You give me the price that I want to publish my book, to get this stuff done properly, and you don't try to extort me and tell me that I can't get that price unless I pay your company more money, because that's not part of the deal. You can give me that price. We've already established that, but now you're telling me that I got to pay money and I got to go and sign up. Everybody's doing that, and they have all these little secret things. Every channel on television, you already pay money for a cable. Then you pay money for high definition channels. Then you pay money for the quote in this country, quote unquote, cable channels, international channels. And now every single station that you turn on, out of the 1,000, 10,000, however many you have access to on your remote, all of them now have another channel that they're putting on that you have to pay $10 a month for in America. I don't know what it is in other countries. Okay. So they call it a plus channel over here. We used to call that pay-per-view, that you can only watch it if you pay money. Right. So first of all this programming 100 years ago and 70 years ago was free. You could just get it on the antenna and watch it for free. Then they started putting commercials on there to make more money. I get that. They had to have advertising because you weren't paying for it. But then you started paying for it, and they kept the advertising and the money they were making from the advertising, which they don't need anymore because you're paying for it. Then Barack Obama says all channels have to be high definition everywhere in America. I wonder how many millions, hundreds of millions of dollars he got for doing that, because he just signed a presidential, whatever they call that, edict, declaration, and he changed the law, and everybody had to upgrade to high definition. I'm okay with that, but then why are the cable companies now charging you for high definition channels when in fact every fucking cable channel on the face of this planet in the United States is required by law to be a high definition? If that's the case, why am I paying for high definition? But then they get you the same way that people got. I was in the movie industry a long time ago. I worked at a movie theater, but I've been a movie fan my entire life. And I know the difference, because of working in a movie theater, of full screen, right? And widescreen. Widescreen is what they film the movie in. When you're in a movie theater, you don't notice it because it's dark in there. So when you watch the movie, you don't realize that the movie that you're watching on the screen has a black line at the top and the bottom because the whole room is dark. So then when they started putting those movies out for people to watch, people were obsessed with seeing this black line at the top and the bottom, and they didn't like it. So then what they did was they zoomed in the picture, and they cut off about 25% of the picture of what's going on in the left and the right peripherals, and zoomed into the middle, and they called that formatting for your television, and people got used to that, and that's what they watch. So now people are obsessed, and they're like, I was watching the screen and I couldn't even see the guy while he was talking. That's because you're obsessed and you don't watch it in the format that they filmed the movie in, and now you're paying them. So what they've done with high definition is they've taken the high definition channels, everything is broadcast in high definition, and now they're still zooming in slightly, and they tell you that's high resolution, high definition, because they're zooming in. That's all they're doing. So you're paying extra money for that. My point is that this is part of, guys, and I know some of you out there are like, oh my God, he's going off on this. What's that got to do with the law of one? The law of one is Raw coming through Carla, warning you about the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders on how they conquer planets. Okay, so I don't understand why it's so hard for people to grasp the concept that all of these things, money, power, control, government, that this entire structure of countries is set up by those people to control you. So all of this is a form of throwing money upwards to them the entire way. Okay. So like I said, share this out, please. And Rick, I'm glad you're here. I saw he was in the chat. He's always late. And then I know it's morning for you, Rick. I'm just giving you a hard time. But he was like, all right, I'll try to find it. And I was like, shit, Rick's not going to find it unless somebody gives him a link now, because he's always going to my page and then complaining because nobody can see what he's saying, but rightly so. That's why I'm no longer broadcasting there. And then he has to go to Orion Rising to get it in the chat. So hopefully, Rick, I see you're here. So you either just went there because there was nowhere else to go, or somebody actually gave you the link. Either way, I'm glad you're here, brother. Right? Because it's stupid. Because if you go to the wrong one, nobody can see your freaking. That's why I'm not broadcasting. You guys need to share it now, and you can share it anywhere you want on Facebook. If you share that link from Orion Rising, all the chats will come in here for me to see. So I've eliminated that. Only problem is I don't know, because I'm not doing it in the background, which I might do at some point. I checked on my phone to see if I was live on Twitter, but I don't see anybody on Twitter talking. But that doesn't mean that I'm there for the very first time. No one may be on Twitter, but I don't know if that chat is, or if there is a chat. So if you guys are on X, and I'm going to check it when we get Raw talking, I'll go there again and I'll click on it and see if there's an interface for you guys. And if not, I apologize, because that's just the way things are, on this channel. Now I can't find myself live again. Of course, that's funny that happens the way it happens. So, okay. So here it is. I'm going to click on it. I'll have to mute it, obviously. Okay, so I want to see if there is anything so there is a chat. There's just nobody. I don't think there's anybody on there. I mean, you know what? I'm on there for the very first time. I don't expect to have 100 million people on there. But if you guys find us, know that I'm going to start broadcasting every week on Friday on this channel. So it is my channel on Twitter, temporarily, until they start trying to charge me money and I tell them to screw off. So it is actually listed as it's at Leonard O'Neill and the number 8, LeonardOneil, and the number 8 is that's my how you find me on X, where I'm live currently. So if one of you want to hop over there and then say something in the chat and let me know, I'll see if it comes into here. But if not, it is what it is, right? I just do that. I'm trying to put it on other platforms because I know that eventually I'm not, but then eventually I was going to be getting off of Facebook and YouTube, but I'm not going to go to X because they're going to start charging money. So I'll stay on Facebook and YouTube for right now until I get deleted again. Anyway, so you can tell I'm in an uproar this week about all this stuff, but I'm glad that company, and I still can't think of the name of it, whoever makes Fortnite, I'm glad they got caught. I'm glad the judge agreed with them, and now they're paying out $550 million to people, and that's just the first class action lawsuit, because when it goes something like this, what will happen is a lot of people will hear about it and go, oh, wait, I had the same problem and I didn't get paid, and there'll be another class action lawsuit. That's usually what happens, and 3 or 4 of them happen. Right, Peter, welcome. Hi, Mel. There's Bobo, right? Bo, what's up? Yes, and you have a new account again. I see, Bo, or you changed your name. Denise, welcome. I see everybody out there. I just didn't say hi. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with Raw. We're at the end of this session, and I got the other session ready to go. I just got to queue it up and throw it on the screen once this one is done. So this is session 25, and we're on question 9, and we were talking about that place, and that where people are fighting against these evil, the evil people that are in service to self. And that's one of those things where I ask people, do you know that place when you go to sleep, sometimes you're in another place and you're not in the body that you're in, but you know that you're there, and there's a battle going on between good and evil, and there's actually like magic being used. That place is real and it does exist. And Ra was talking about how 4 people stand at one time, and that's in the 4th dimension, by the way, the 4th density, and only 4 people stand at once, because it only takes 1 person to stand and 3 to back them up to hold off the hordes of people. And one thing I noticed, and I didn't back it up for that part, but I noticed it before I going to start here, is that Ra actually talks about the only other place other than 3D reality where people feel the need and can't stop themselves until they learn it, of fighting against evil, is actually the 4th dimension. So just know that it's not, and this is what I tell people, because they're like, well, is it done after this? Because I know everything ends. No, because right now everybody lives amongst you. So you don't know, and they're hiding right in plain sight. They could be your relative, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, friends of yours, your next door neighbors. You don't know until you figure out whether they're evil, or whether they're in service to self. that is what is considered evil on this planet. Then when you go into the fourth, they're separated a little bit more and a little bit easier to see, but that battle is still happening. So you still have, that's why we have a crossover here with the Orion Crusaders attacking us from the fourth dimension as well, or dimension and density, as well as the third. And after that, it becomes less prevalent in the fifth. And when you get into the sixth, when you get halfway through there, that's if you guys look at the picture that I posted and the meme that I posted, that's where what they call mid-heaven, which would be the Midgard of the universe, but not the Midgard that they're talking about here by the Vikings. That's here on Earth is Middle Earth, Midgard. That's actually the middle brain. That's I covered that more in my book. That's the middle brain of your body, which is where the third eye is when it's not illuminated. And then when you illuminate that, that's when you go to Valhalla, or when you go to the Christos resurrecting you, Jacob's ladder and the resurrection. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow with Jacqueline. You guys might want to tune in to a one-on-one with Jack. She will be live on YouTube. Her channel on YouTube is Oneness Project Light. Yeah, Oneness Project Light, or Oneness Light Project. Oneness Project Light on YouTube. You can follow the link for the commercial that we put up for you earlier this week that we have up, and I'll put that in probably here in the description when I get a chance to. But if not, you can go to my page. You can click on that where you can see us talking for about 15 minutes about what we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail, which is going to be about that 666 and all of that. We're going to break that down for you and show you that it's not a religious thing. It's not this evil devil, but it is. But it was a metaphorical. There isn't some pitchfork carrying red leathery skinned guy with horns and fangs and a tail. That doesn't exist. But that was an image, just like Santa Claus, only I'm not comparing that because Santa Claus is not evil. But Santa Claus to the ascension oil is a story for children, as that is a story for children. For the ascension oil, the devil, Satan, is a metaphor for children for being in service to self and being of the flesh. That's what they called that 5,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, when they were talking about being human and of the mindset of this place, that is being of the flesh. Okay, so we'll get into that. You guys should tune in tomorrow. Jacqueline and I are going to talk about that for about an hour tomorrow, so be ready. That's going to be cool. Okay, so I need to turn off my Twitter app here, because if I don't, I'm afraid I'll hit the button again and the sound will come on. All right, so I'm going to do a sound check for Raw, for the Law of One. Let me know if it sounds good. And when there's only 2.5 minutes left of this session, we'll get through that and start the next session as we go. All right, so here we go. Let's start this. Somebody let me know if you guys can hear it okay.
25.8 Questioner. What density are these four planetary entities? Ra. I am Ra. These entities are of the density of love, numbering 4.
See, I did actually back up. I didn't think I did. I thought I passed it and forgot to do that, but I did. I backed up. So, and they're of the fourth density, and there are 4 of them that volunteer to stand at any one given time. But everybody rotates in and out. Those of you who are, in fact, wanderers or wish to do so, you rotate in and out. And so that's why sometimes you have those dreams and sometimes you don't. It's because when you have those dreams, that's when you left this body while this body was sleeping, and you're there and you're working, and then you come back, and then there'll be a gap where you won't have that dream for a long time. That's because you're not actually there standing on the fence anymore, or on the wall, as it were, standing on the line. Anyway, let's continue.
25.9.
Thank you, Cassie, by the way.
Questioner. Then I am assuming this is the most effective density for this work. Would this density, an entity of this density, be more effective for this type of work than, say, an entity of density 5 or 6? Ra. I am Ra. The fourth density is the only density besides your own which, lacking the wisdom to refrain from battle, sees the necessity of the battle. Thus it is necessary that fourth density social memory complexes be used. 25.10 Questioner. Am I correct in assuming, then, that fourth density on both sides of both the Orion and the Confederation sides are in this battle, and that the densities 5th and 6th on the Orion side do not engage in this? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This will be the last full question, as this entity's energies are low. It is partially correct. 5th and 6th density entities positive would not take part in this battle. 5th density negative would not take part in this battle. Thus, the 4th density of both orientations join in this conflict. May we ask for a few short questions before we close?
Do you see? So it literally, the only place where good and evil is actually fighting against one another and engaging in any way is the 3rd and 4th density. That's it. After that, it's over. You've already learned everything that you're supposed to learn and you're moving on. Even if you're choosing to be evil, you now are not engaging with people that are of service to others at all. You don't care after that. And you're about doing what you need to do, learning what you need to learn. And then eventually when you get halfway through the 6th density, that's when you realize this is it. This is the purgatory. You don't get to go any higher, and you can never return to source until you repent, which is a nautical term, go backwards on your course, and then become in service to others. And then you can report in once you make that change. Then your ascension starts again. So again, you have to have the dark night of the soul there, and then your ascension begins again. And then once you get back to the one, then you report in, and all your information is accessible, and everything that you learn is accessible. But that was the safeguard that was put in place by the creator, so the creator could never be taken over by its own ego. Once the creator said, I have to have an ego, then I have to make sure that I'm not going to succumb to it. So therefore, it's only going to serve a purpose for this time, and after that, it doesn't matter. And it's not going to be in any use. The devil shall rule the earth for a time. That's a beginning and a middle and an end, guys. And that's in all the Hebrew and Christian, and I think it might even be in the Muslim doctrine. It's all in there. It's in their Talmuds. The devil will be unleashed on the earth for a time. And it serves a purpose. That's your ego. It serves a purpose. And people say, well, what's that time? It's when you're done with it. It's when you're done with it. When you start your ascension and you make your choice one way or the other, then that's when the devil's done its work. That's why the 666, even the song which I have connected to the meme or the reel or the short, which I'm using Iron Maiden. Love that band, by the way. Iron Maiden and their song from the early 80s off their 2nd or 3rd album, which is 666, the number of the beast. It was actually the name of the song was the number of the beast. And if you they stayed very kind of Christian, even though they weren't. They're English, so I'm pretty sure that they weren't Catholic. I'm pretty sure they were Protestant. I don't know for sure what they're, but either way, that's still a doctrine that is Western Judeo ideology or derived from. Right, the Hebrew religion spawned all Christianity, the Catholicism, and whatever you call any form of Christianity, including the Mormon Church and the Muslim religion. Those were all spawned from Moses and from that doctrine, that Talmud, which was the Torah. Right, the Quran, the Torah, and then it became the Quran, and it became the Old and New Testament by the Christians. It all goes back to David and really Moses and all that, and that's where it all spawned from. So whatever it is that you have, any of those thought processes, that's where I came from. And then if you're in the East, you're either Buddhist or Taoist or one of those Hindu, but those are all still based on the way, and most of them were all based on ancient stuff. I talk about that a little bit in my book, but I never get into the theology. That'll be a second book, obviously, or a third book whenever I decide what it is that I'm going to write about. One of them is going to be explaining that in a lot of details. Where I hit you with it pretty hard in the first book, and then I'm going to wring it out. So many things I'm going to wring out of that first book that I hit the world with. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to read it and go, oh my God, he just tried to cover everything all at once. Yeah, it was introduction to, that's why reality check, ahead. You'll see the cover when we get that finished and published. Okay. So let's continue here. So we got about 1:12 left in this session. And like I said, I already got the other one ready and queued up. I'll just pop it in and we'll go from there and continue. Let's continue.
25.11 Questioner. Well, I will first ask the answer at the end if there's anything we can do to make the instrument really comfortable. I'll only ask the questions that the instrument has or answer the questions that the instrument has energy left to give. But I really would like to know of the orientation.
That's a good question. Bo said, what does the book of Enoch Right. What does the Book of Enoch, a part of play in all this? The Book of Enoch is one of the books they took out that has a narrative that they didn't like, and so I suggest to people that's one of the Dead Sea Scrolls that you should read. All of those are the Gnostic Bibles as well. All the Gnostic information. You should read the Hermetica, or not the Hermetica, but you should read the Corpus Hermetica, or Corpus Hermeticus, which is a Greek. It's the last one that we have. We don't have the version from that. It's a Greek translation of the Hermes doctrine that came from Egypt, but we don't have that scroll anymore. I think it's in the Book of Kells. You can look that up, but I would suggest reading all of those. So the Book of Enoch is something that was telling a story that was different from the narrative they were trying to preach to the world. So during at least the first two councils, the Council of Nicaea, the first two, 1 and 2, they took out like 180 or 300, 400 books out of the Bible. So what they did was they said, we have all these different Bibles from around the world. We need the Eastern Orthodox, Western Orthodox churches, and those were the two biggest ones. And then the North and Southern Orthodox churches, bring your Bibles and all the scrolls that you have and all the information, and we're going to sit down and we're going to compile a Bible. Well, that was what they told the world, was we needed a unified Bible, and there was a bunch of books in there that didn't need to be in there. And most of the books that we now know were taken out are books that were telling a story that was completely different than the one that they're telling now, and they didn't want that narrative to be told. Those of us who are theologians and we're taking a objective look at all of these scrolls that were taken out, we realize that the actual message that Jesus was preaching, Muhammad was preaching, Moses was preaching, and even David, Elijah, all these people in history, in these doctrines, what they were actually preaching is what was removed from all the books, right? Yeah, Peter said the Book of Kells. Absolutely, Peter. So the Colburn Bible in Scotland and the Book of Kells in Ireland are a very conducive, very informative group of scrolls that those monks went and got when they were killing everyone and destroying and burning all of history. When they were burning Alexandria, they knew a lot of that was going to happen. So when the Jews left Egypt with Moses, they took a lot of information with them. And the Irish and Scottish monks, the Irish monks who went to Scotland, they went and procured these ancient scrolls and brought them all of the information, everything that we have in history. You can look this up. There's a book out there that's entitled How the Irish Saved the History. Literally everything that you take for granted from history that wasn't found since 4,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, it literally is only there. All the history that we have that goes back to 10,000 years, 100,000 years ago, all of that history only exists on this earth currently, with the exclusion of the Dead Sea Scrolls or any scrolls that have been found since the Exodus, or about 100 years after the Exodus in the Bible, which was about 3,500 years ago. All of the history that we have on this earth, including the Bible scrolls and all of that, is only here because those monks went and took all of the information and skirted it off and recopied it into new books and didn't change any of it. That's why everyone's like, well, what if they just changed the narrative? They were the ones that were saying, don't change the narrative. And then they had these councils where they were taking these books out, and another group called the Essenes took, and that one scroll that you're talking about from the Book of Enoch was one of the scrolls that they didn't want in there. King David didn't want it in there, and then I forget who was in charge. I'm trying to remember his name. I can see his face from his statue, but I can't think of his name right now. I think it was Pius at the time, Pope Pius the second or third. Don't quote me. And those guys at the time at the councils of Nicaea, they decided that they wanted to change the Bible, and they took all these books out they either didn't understand, or it was painting the true narrative of the world, of the history of the human race. Everything that I teach now and that Raw is teaching in the Law of One, and that all these people that we used to be called fringe groups or New Age crazies, we're finding out is true. And the reason that some of us know that is because it's knowledge that you gain from the universe itself. It's not something that I was taught by someone else. It was the way to find this knowledge. I was taught by someone else. And that's the same thing that Jesus was trying to do. And Enoch is actually related to these people. Enoch is actually the grandfather or great grandfather of Noah. In fact, some people say it's the other way around, and that Noah was in fact Enoch, because if you read the book of Enoch, you'll see that it talks about the deluge, and it looks like that Noah was a name that they borrowed that was another offshoot story, and it's kind of complicated, but if you're reading theology, you know this, from another group of people who were telling the same story, but they called him Noah and not Enoch, and they couldn't call him Enoch anymore because they were trying to eradicate all the rest of what he said. So they just changed his name to what they were calling him. Further east, they were calling him Noah. So they changed the name to Noah, and so Noah built the ark, and then they say, well, there's a time problem here, and it's his great grandfather. But when you really look at it, you find out that Enoch was in fact Noah, and everything that Enoch was talking about, Noah was responsible for saying. But they wanted the flood to still be in there because God got pissed off at the world and killed everybody with a flood. And so they wanted that story to continue, so they had to pervert it. So they called him Noah. So Enoch is in fact that character that you know as Noah, who built the ark. And there's more reason Noah was charged by God to build the ark to save humanity. He was also immortal and lived for a very long time. And if you read the book of Enoch, you see that in there. It's just like if you read the book of Judas, you're going to find out that Judas was the one who got crucified. There is no telling of Judas hanging himself, except for in, I think it's Matthew or John in the New Testament, where he hung himself afterwards, and because he was so distraught because he turned Jesus in. You read the book of Judas, and you find out Jesus talked him into it and told him he had to do it, and that it was a sacrifice, and that he was the only one that could do it. And so he literally talked John into doing that to betray him. And John was going to do it, but when John got there to betray him, he couldn't betray Jesus because he loved him too much, and he didn't understand that it was supposed to happen. So he said, I'm Jesus, and I've been lying to you and hiding the entire time, and I want to turn myself in. So they beat him and crucified him, and no one could do anything about it. And so he actually it was told by Jesus, your sacrifice is going to be in the end in heaven. Everyone's going to know what you did for humanity, but he didn't realize that that entailed him being crucified. And it wasn't like Jesus was talking him into that, because he didn't. Jesus was not telling him to go and get yourself crucified in my stead, which a lot of Satanists want to say that. See, Jesus was a trickster, and he tricked. So they'll admit that people in service to self will admit that there's a book of Judas, but then they'll say that in the book of Judas that Jesus was convincing Judas to give himself by using psychology, because that's what they would do, using reverse psychology, basically using the Jedi mind trick on him without saying it out loud to get him to go and kill himself. And if you read the actual book of Judas, the scroll of Judas, which is one of the Dead Sea Scrolls that the Essenes got murdered for when they hid, to keep the information to the rest of the world, that we found in 1948, then you realize that there was nothing in there that told him to do any harm to himself. It was always, you are supposed to go and turn me in. But they kept the story that way. They said, so they must have read that scroll when they were writing the Bible, because they left that story in the Bible, but it doesn't come from the book of Judas. It comes from one book only. So, and a lot of scholars, theologians, believe that was added to that story. So there's a lot of things. The reason that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are there, because they're telling the same story from a different perspective, and only one book tells of Jesus when he was a boy. Only one book tells of the temptation in the garden. Only one book tells of the crucifixion itself and the Beatitudes for that. So they have all those in to paint the narrative that they wanted to paint. Not all of those books tell the entire same story. The only story they tell is that there was this guy who was the savior, and he did certain things. And so there's a bunch of things that they agree on, that if you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you'll see that it's kind of repetitive, but the overall story changes, and you have to read all four to get the entire life story of Jesus. Why is that? Well, different people tell the same story differently, and they remember things differently. But those books weren't written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, who were in fact one of his 12 disciples, 4 of his 12 disciples. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written between 100 and 400 years after Jesus's demise. So those guys didn't live that long back then. You were only living to be about 35 or 40. Okay. So the book of Enoch is one of those books, like, and I suggest to everyone that you shouldn't take anything for granted. You should read all the books. This is what my father taught me when I was a boy. We lived across the street from a Mormon church. Literally, their parking lot was next to my house. Literally next door, and we had a fence. Over the other side of the fence was a parking lot on the right side, the left side of the house if you're in the house, right side of the house if you're in the house looking outside. And across the street from that parking lot was a Mormon church. So kids went up there and they got talking to people and went in to see their church and went to a mass. I came back and asked my father if we were Christian, and we went over there, and my father sat me down and said, this is what you need to do. You need to start looking into all of these religions from around the world. If there's one of these religions that you feel that is something that you want to join, then do that. But don't take what they're saying on face value for granted, because then you're just following them blindly. Read their Bible, learn about go there, see their church, talk to their people, see their masses, listen to everything that they're saying, and don't just go to one. Don't be satisfied with one. Go to all of them. And if you think any of those are to your liking, then by all means do that and do what you feel is your destiny. So I literally, from that time, and at the time I was probably 7 or 8 years old when I asked that question, from that day until this, I have done just that. So literally when people say, well, do you have a bachelor's degree or a doctor's degree in theology? No, I don't. But I've actually studied theology longer than most of those people who have that on this earth, because they didn't choose to go down that path till they got into college, like my brother now. My brother is going down that path, and he's going to college to get a bachelor's degree in theology. I'm sure he and I are going to butt heads at some point, because he's going to go, well, I have a piece of paper that says, I know what I'm talking about. Well, I have actually read all the scrolls I can find. And whenever I find a new one, I read the entire scroll on this earth. How many have you read, brother? How many religions have you read? Have you read the Quran? Have you read the Hebrew Bible? Have you read the Christian Bible? Have you read the Hindu Bible, the Hindi, the Taoist? Have you read all of that? Oh, no. Okay. When you're done with all of that, you and I can sit back down and have another conversation. I don't have a piece of paper that somebody wrote my name on and put their name on saying I'm the authority on whether this person has known anything, because I haven't gone to take a test. You know why? Because to take those tests, you have to pay all their money, thousands and thousands of dollars. So they'll acknowledge that you know what you're talking about. I don't need that. I don't need them to do that. That's just like my title as a Merlin. It's not a piece of paper. It's not on file in somebody's computer. It's something that was given to me by another Merlin, who was my father, who taught me for 18 years of my life, and then gave me that title just before he passed away. Okay. So people can say to me, well, then you're not legitimate. You can believe that if you want to. I'm all right with that. I am. This is the place where you're supposed to make your decisions on your own. If you're doing that and you're making a decision and not to believe me, then you're actually starting to get the process of what you're supposed to do here. If you also do it in the same respect and decide maybe he does know what he's talking about, I'm okay with that too, because you still, either way, you're doing something and you are actually trying to learn. Okay. So the book of Enoch, I know I went on for a long time, but the book of Enoch is a book that everyone should read, along with every single scroll. If you are in any way interested in religion or philosophical thought of a spiritual nature, you should look into the history, because what you uncover as you do this, you start, and this is why I tell people this, what you uncover when you start this is you start with the modern books, because that's what everybody has a Bible. It's right there readily. So you start reading that. Then what happens is you start comparing that Bible to another Bible that was older, or another Bible that was printed from a different language. And then what you start doing is you start seeing the similarities and then the things that are changed. This is how you go down the road of theology. It's the same road that you go down with philosophy, mythology, anything. As you start expanding your consciousness and you're reading this stuff, you're going to want to learn others. And then when you start finding out, wait a minute, there's an older scroll that tells a different story than this one. Why? Now you're on to the track. Why is this one different than this one? Wait, here's these other ones too. And then you find out these were scrolls they didn't want us to know about. And they're trying to say these are fake. The Emerald Tablets, yes. Right? The Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you should read that. You should read that again. That was based on, that was Thoth, the god Thoth, who was the chronicler, storyteller of Ra. Ra is Ra from the Law of One, who came to Egypt. So Thoth is telling the story of I am the god Thoth. And if you're actually paying attention, I've read that exclusively. I think there's 13, there's that number again, 13 chapters or books in that scroll, and all of them are telling the same story over and over and over and over and over and over, 13 times, 13 different ways. But the theme of that is how to ascend. The theme of that is the same story that Jesus was telling over and over and over and over and over. It's the same story that Muhammad was telling over and over and over and over. It's the same story Moses was telling over and over and over and over. It's the same exact stories. Most people don't realize that, right? And they well, there's all this other stuff. And I'm like, no, okay, right? So here's the deal. I read these scrolls and I see how simple they are now. And I didn't tell anybody, we're going on almost 2 years now, that I didn't tell anybody that I can actually interpret these scrolls and I actually get what they're trying to say. Everybody thinks it's going to be this, well, it's going to be about the end times of the world and God's coming back and blah, blah, blah. And then I tell you this, if you listen to every single person who was a savior character in any religion, the theme they were telling you is that God is already here. Okay? God is already here. And you are literally supposed to, and God is already reaching down halfway to grab your hand. Your job is to go that distance of that 50-50 distance halfway up and grab the hand of God and save yourself. All of them said that over and over and over. Even Thoth did. Even Hermes did in the Hermetica. All these people, no matter how far back you go, all of that information is esoteric, not exoteric. Okay, esoteric means everyone's like, well, that means it's a mystery. No, esoteric means it's not a mystery, but that it is banned. Esoteric means that it is secret knowledge that someone doesn't want you to actually know. You should look that word up. I talk about that in my book. Exoteric means that it is forthright and knowledge that they want you to know. They don't tell you that word. There's so many words that are changed by a letter that mean the opposite of what they are, that they take out the one that's positive and only teach you the negative one because they don't want you to know the positive one. And I talked about that last week, right? With imminent and immanent. Those words, if you change and take the I out of imminent, not the beginning I, but the one in between the ends, and you put an A in there, it's a different word with a different meaning. Imminent means doom is a pending doom, this destruction. Something is weighing on you and about to attack and get you. Imminent with A means something beautiful is about to happen. You should look those words up. So this is the problem with what's going on in the education. They've taken your education away from you and they don't let you learn these words. They're there for you to look up because there's free will, but they discourage your free will, right? So Bo, the fact that you're asking what does the book of Enoch have to do in all of this, would suggest you're already going down that road, or you've already read it and you're leading me on purpose, right? Because I know Bo, he might have already read it. And he might have been just trying to help lead the conversation. Either way, it is something that everyone should look into. And I tell people in your spare time, when you're bored and you have nothing to do, if you are on the spiritual path, you should be doing spiritual shit. Okay. Not 100%. I don't do it all the time. I take time off. I'll take off 3, 4, 5 hours out of the day and play World of Warcraft and do boring, mindless shit with magic and shit, running around killing things and doing whatever, making whatever, mining stuff, making pounding it into weapons and armor, or sewing shit together. No joke, right? So I'm not. This is not just only what I do. However, my second biggest hobby, or my first biggest hobby, would be the education of myself in a spiritual way, in a language way. Every single day, I spend at least an hour learning one of 22 languages. Not a joke. I know my sister, she's surpassed me in Spanish. My sister, Deborah, has always been better. And she's older than me. And so she took Spanish when we were kids. And I didn't get to go to Spanish until I was in the 7th and 8th grade, because that's when they taught it to us over here. So she was ahead of me by a couple of years. So she was learning Spanish and I wasn't. And then I started learning Spanish. So she's always been better than me. And then I started doing it on the app that I play on, which is free because there's commercials. I use Duolingo, and she started on that. Now she surpassed me on Spanish because that's all she's learning is Spanish. So she's surpassed me, but I'm happy that she's done that because she's sticking with it and she's bettering herself. And her Spanish was already better than mine anyways, because she had been taking it longer, but now she's doing it every day. And she's got 100 and some odd days in. Or longer. I forgot what it was. She just hit a good milestone of like almost a year. So she's like 200 and something days in, where I'm at 444 or something like that. I don't remember exactly the number. I hit it every night, 445, 446, something like that, days in a row. So that's like a year and a half, right? Where I'm doing it consistently. I've been doing it since 2016. The app came out in 2013 or 2015, and I started in 2016 and didn't know the app had just started. I was like, this app's cool. And so I've been on there, but I wasn't doing it every single day. I would go for 3 or 4 months and then stop, and then go for 3 or 4 months and then stop for a month or two, and then go for 3 or 4 months. And that's what I did. And then I decided, you know what, if I looked back and said, man, I started this so long ago that had I just did it every day, I would be fluent in all of these languages by now, because I've been doing it for almost 10 years. So I was like, I'm going to do this every single day. So the last thing I do before I go to bed, which is always the smartest thing to do when you're tired, so you have to tax yourself. So you have to remember. So some people don't want to do that when they're tired. But I have found that if you sleep on something, hence the old term, sleep on it, the last thing you do is what your mind mulls over the most when you're sleeping. So I do language and then I go to bed. And that way it gets into my head more through osmosis, because I'm thinking about it. My brain has time to think about it while I'm sleeping. So I learn faster. That's literally, when I was a kid, I used to take books and put them underneath my pillow and sleep on there, because I believed that I would be mentally reading, spiritually reading the book while I was asleep. And there are some theories out there that say that if you do that, you place books under your pillow or under your bed where your head is, that through osmosis, you actually gain that knowledge faster than when you're actually reading it. So I don't know if it actually worked. Some people say it did. I don't know. Some people say, I think I'm a know-it-all. I don't think that, but that's what everybody else perceives. Their ego gets bruised, and that guy thinks he knows everything. No, you ask me, I'll tell you, I know nothing. I believe what Socrates said: the more you know, the more you realize you don't know shit. You don't know anything. It's not what his words were. His words were, the more you know, the more you realize you know nothing. But I do. That's the truth. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know shit, and that there's so much more. You can never learn it all. And if we did, this place would be over long ago. So we wouldn't be here. So literally, if we as the creator could learn everything that there is to learn, we'd be done, because we would do it in an instant, because time doesn't exist for the creator. Since that's not happening and we're still learning shit, that means that it's infinite, right? So that means no matter how much you try to learn, there's always something more to learn. Okay. All right. So let's continue. Denise says, I do that too. She probably puts books under her head or under her pillow. To get it in through osmosis. That's what I've done my entire life, not a joke. Or I'll put them near my head, That's crazy, but I do. I have. But I don't put them directly under my pillow anymore, because that's uncomfortable, because I always like to turn on my side and put my arm under my pillow. But I'll still stack 1 or 2 under my bed every now and then if I'm having a problem trying to figure something out and I need it out of that book, right? Yes, he did. He said, put a book under my pillow, right? Okay, let's continue.
A 5th density negative for not participating in this battle. Ra, I am Ra. The fifth density is the density of light or wisdom. The so-called negative service to self entity in this density is at a high level of awareness and wisdom and has ceased activity except by thought. The fifth density negative is extraordinarily compacted and separated from all else.
There he's referring to that evil that everybody refers to as the devil. Now you have to remember Satan, Lucifer, those words. Who pointed that out? Rick, was that you that pointed that out in the chat? That means the light bringer. That literally Satan. You know, I wrote a thing and I put it out there that was written by the general of the fallen army that had fought in heaven and fell, and it was signed Lucifer Satanus. And it was about God not being exactly a great person, and because the God of the Bible is not the creator of the universe. The God of the Bible, if you read the Old Testament, that God is a child with an ego problem, a temper, throwing temper tantrums all the time. So whenever they say those books were taken out of the Bible because those books aren't really God, I'm like, so let's discuss the maturity level of this God then. And there's a lot of Hebrews out there that'll do the same thing, and they'll tell you the same thing. That's why when they did the movie of Moses with Christian Bale, God was an 8-year-old, 10-year-old boy with blonde hair and blue eyes, by the way, and he had a temper problem and an ego problem, and Moses had to control God. Moses said, it's enough, Ramses has been beaten enough, and God screamed at him in anger, and his face turned red, and he said, no, I want to punish him. That was God. Okay. So I loved what they did with that movie with Christian Bale, because they showed that God was a child and had an ego problem. The God of the Old Testament is not a good God. The God of the Old Testament is a human being with an ego problem and a temper. And that is the truth of that. When I've learned reading these scrolls, when you read these scrolls and these torments and these tomes, and you see that God says, do as I say, not as I do, that's a human parent that says, I can do whatever debauchery, but don't you do it. And literally when you see Sodom and Gomorrah, and if you believe the Bible, the way it says in the Bible, God got angry because everybody in Sodom and Gomorrah, everyone, including the innocent children and the unborn children, were evil, and they all were wicked and went against the word of God. So no one, not one human being in those two cities were worth saving. So he decimated them all and killed them all. Okay, that is not an all-seeing, all-knowing, all-loving God who thinks that everyone has a good soul, but they've just gone wrong at all. I, as a lowly human in 3D, am wiser towards other humans than the so-called God, creator of the universe. There's a problem there. When you become an adult and you look at the things that God did and say to yourself, a God who was truly infinite in all faculties and was the creator, benevolent, with the creator of the universe, would never think that way or talk that way. That is a child speaking. That is someone, whoever wrote that from the perspective of a 12-year-old child. And we see that. I see that. Many millions of people in the world see that in all these religions. This God who becomes angry and obsessed and annoyed and gets pissed off. How dare you? Why would the God creator of the universe act this way? That's a human trait. That is a human trait. And there's, how many people on this earth that have chosen to be pacifists? When people will go, oh, you're a pacifist, then you're one of those crazy people. No, because they don't think that violence is the answer to anything. So why would they? So if we on this lowly little teeny level can bypass those instincts and not think that there should not be any violence, and we should be able to handle this without having to murder someone, but yet we're going to say that the creator of the universe didn't have that ability, and I'm supposed to buy that. I can't. So when they say we took out these books in the Bible because they weren't really someone who was benevolent speaking, or then I say we have to take all the books out because none of those books, except for the ones who are telling you how to ascend, are in fact spoken by someone who is wise. All of the rest of the books that were left in are spoken and written by someone who is a child's mind, has a child's mind, who thinks that they are very intelligent, and they are not. Only appear to be intelligent if you are in fact a child, because then you won't see the craftiness of their language, because they have enough ability to realize how to get over on you and use the Jedi mind trick on you. And that is what's mostly left in the Bibles, except for those scrolls that they still didn't understand, and evil people can't. Okay, the scrolls that were left in were the ones that they even knew. They even knew, we don't get this, but it doesn't seem like they're painting that same narrative of the ones that we took out. So these are secret scrolls that will leave in to telling people, if you have the eyes to see or the mind or the ears to hear, this will be locked up in the Bible for those people in the way distant future to understand. And the truth is, that's not the meaning of what they were saying. In the end times, that entire thing is a metaphor for your end times. That whole entire thing is not a metaphor for a certain time period, but it can manifest as that. And we're okay with that. So if everyone here wakes up to the realization of what's going on, then that prophecy becomes true, that in the distant future, this entire group of people understand what I'm saying. That's because they have risen their knowledge and their vibration to a level that has unlocked the ability to actually figure out what's being said to you. So it's actually twofold. It is a prophecy saying that the majority of the human race won't get this until 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years from now. That has become the thing, and it is true, and it was true when they said it. But the truth is, all of you can understand what all of the scrolls say by giving up the body of the flesh, by not living in the 3D, wanting power, clicks, likes, money, wealth, control. Get that out of your system completely and decide that you do not want to be in service to self, and then do the things you need to do to survive here, have money, have a place to live, have food, roof over your head, and then have enough money to have leisure time and enough money to do something to educate yourself. Utilize the things like this free thing they hand you that they charge you $1,000 for, that is a computer that has access to the entire knowledge of the human race, and start using it for that. Instead of swipe right, swipe left, that chick's hot, that guy's hot, he's got a big package, and that's all. I want to be an influencer, so I'm going to go out and run over a retired cop, film it, and put it on the internet because I think I'm going to be cool and it's going to get talked about and I'm going to get a bunch of likes. Now you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life for murder. Those two boys that did that. They've already arrested one and they're about to arrest the other one. They're going to go to jail for the rest of their lives for murdering not just a regular human being, but a retired police officer who was, in fact, I believe, a captain of a police force, which becomes a felony, lifetime sentence in prison because they wanted clicks on fucking TikTok. Okay. That actually happened, Rick. That happened here in the United States. Two young kids, about 15 years old, driving a car, filming it. I watched the video, filming it. And we're like, ready? Are you ready? It's on. And then they're honking at the guy as they're about to run him over. And they're driving. They didn't know who he was. They just picked a guy random. Here's a guy riding a bicycle in the same lane that will go direction where we're going. Let's run this fucker over. And they ran him over and killed him. He died from it. And then they posted it. They were live and posted it and didn't even take it down. And they thought they were cool. Okay, so that stuff is what's being propagated by all of this craziness, but being in service to self. And most of the kids here in the United States, I don't know what it's like over in Australia, but most of the kids here in the United States, between the ages of 9 and 27, when you ask them, what do you want to do for a living? They're like, I want to be an influencer on the internet. That's literally how bad it's gotten in this country. That they want what? No one's like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a cop. I want to be a carpenter. I want to have my own business. I want to run a restaurant. I want to be an influencer on TikTok. The number one choice by kids today in the United States. I'll bet it's the same everywhere in the world other than China, where they don't let them see all of the crap that they let us see and program for us to see and the rest of the world. They don't let their kids see that in China. You have to be watching educational stuff, and you only get an hour a day on TikTok. Okay, so I'm not making that up. Those are actual facts. You can look these up. So if you're not dying of the fentanyl the Chinese are bringing over here and giving to the cartels to make money off of, your kids' brains are being turned to mush by them just going to the next level of the Jedi mind trick. This is what the next level of brainwashing, and it's not something new. They've been doing this forever, and that's part of what's those little scrolls that the Anunnaki have with them in that little handbag. That's just, this is the new version of it, because before it was newspapers, movies, television, and now it's the internet. So it's just the new media that they had. Before that, it was the way they taught you and beat you and turned you into whatever, because it was word of mouth. We don't need no book learning around here, boy. Right? That's you. And I don't know what you got them books for. What you think you're going to get out of them books that I can't show you? Get over there and slop them hogs, boy. You don't need no book learning around here, no how. That was the way people actually spoke in the United States 150 years ago. That was changed by people who were trying to educate people. And then they started using that system. And as soon as they came up with printing, then it was propaganda in printing on both sides. And then that genre just grew into the internet. The internet is the new movie. It's the new magazine. It's the new periodical. It's the new radio station. That's just the internet now, these apps. That's all. So it's not something new. They're doing they just have gotten more control because they can get it to the mass. That's why it's called mass media. They can get it to everybody faster than they could before to brainwash you. Before, they just took all the information away, didn't let you know it was there, and burned all the books so you didn't have access to anything. Well, now they can't do that because the internet is working against them. So now they're using the internet to keep you from looking at that stuff. That's how they're trying to eradicate it now. They're just doing the same job. They're burning the books by burning the idea in your mind that you want. That's boring. I don't want to read that stuff. I'd rather be flicking back and forth than watching the guy fall down, the old guy or the kid who did a fail. Then they got whole shows to that. So they have all this stuff that'll keep you looking at the things that are of the flesh, of the human condition. This is what Ra's warning about. Let's continue.
25.12 Questioner. Thank you very much. We do not wish to deplete the instrument. So is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable? Ra, I am Ra. You are very conscientious. As we requested previously, it would be well to observe the angles taken by the more upright posture of the entity. It is causing some nerve blockage in the portion of the body complex called the elbows. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one creator. Adonai.
All right, let me queue up the other one here. I don't have it opened. I have to open it. Hold on. Let me queue up the next one here for the next session, and we'll put that online, right?
February.
I don't know if that's shared, so I'm going to go put that back because it might play. As I have jets flying over, weirdly, I've had some military jets flying over in the last few days here, which we don't normally have all the time, but I'm hearing them and I can tell the difference between military turbines and civilian turbines. So it's kind of bizarre that we got that going on, but not unheard of. It might just be the time of year, because the truth is I have 2 military bases, 3 actually, because a reservist base literally on 3 sides of me, west, south, and east of me are military bases, and 2 international air bases, 1 south and 1 east from me next to the military bases. So I have aircraft flying over all the time, and those bases are where all of the aircraft that fight the fires in the entire state of California are based here, because this is the central point. That's why the capital is here. It's literally halfway between north and south of California. The 1,000-mile long state that we live in. So literally, if those guys, if there's a fire anywhere east or north of me, they fly over me on the way out and back when they're refueling. So that happens. So it's not unheard of that military flies over, but I'm not usually in the flight pattern because this is a civilian pattern, in an emergency pattern. So the cops and the fire and rescue people fly over here along with the civilians, but not commercial. So the commercial stays, on their path, and they don't come over here. So the military doesn't usually either, but the military can go wherever they want, right? But in the last 2 days, I've heard, and one just went over, a military jet, and not a big one, so a fighter jet of some sort, flying in and out, doing a sorties, probably practicing something. I remember when I was in the San Francisco Bay Area in the city of Concord, I was working in the city of Pacheco, and there's a little airstrip. It was called the Concord Airport. It was there at the edge of the town, facing and only about half a mile from the Sacramento River that goes to the San Francisco Bay, and only about 20 miles from the San Francisco Bay. And I remember sitting at lunch one day, and all of a sudden I hear this freaking radial engine, this huge radial engine military plane, and I'm like, whoa. And I had I was sitting with my back to the windows, to the sliding glass doors, which overlooked our pool, and the airport was about 1,000 yards north from that. And I'm sitting there with the secretary, and she goes, "What the hell is that?" And I said, "Go and look out the window and tell me if you see the largest aircraft you've ever seen in your entire life, that is a military aircraft, and it's landing or taking off or both. Sounds like they're doing touch and goes to this airport." And she goes over and goes, "Oh my God, this thing is bigger than our entire office." And I was like, "Yep." And so she was like, "There's something must be wrong. Why are they here?" And I'm like, "No, the only reason they're here is that they're actually doing maneuvers for some reason." And so I got up and I walked over and I was watching them, and they were literally doing touch and goes. And I'm like, these guys are gearing up to go somewhere over in probably, and it turned out they were getting ready to go to Korangal Valley, which was the biggest bloodbath over in Afghanistan. I think it was Afghanistan or Iraq, one of those places that we were fighting over there, and just came out of. And that was one of the biggest bloodbaths. And the reason they were doing that, where I was at, and it was a C-130, as a matter of fact. It was the second biggest aircraft. So it wasn't the 130, it was the 114. Second largest military aircraft the United States has. And what they were doing was, where that airport was tight up against this mountain called Mount Diablo, which is an old dead volcano that I lived at the base of. I have it tattooed on my arm, by the way, that mountain. And what they were doing was they were flying around and coming over that mountain and dropping down into and over the city and going and doing touch and goes, because then if they messed up, they would crash into either the water or the highway, because the highway literally went north-south right there on the west side of the airport. And then just past that was the water. So they were literally practicing going over this mountain that was up really high, because it was a mile high at the top of that mountain. It was more than 3,000 feet up, and then it would descend all the way down, and that airport was at 27 feet above sea level. And so they had to fly in with this big aircraft and dive down and go down and practice landing and then taking off really fast to get out of there on a short runway. And so they were testing that, and I was watching them, and everybody called, and she called the sheriff and the authorities, and they said, "No, they're just practicing. They're out of Phoenix, Arizona, and they're practicing flying because there's going to have missions that they're doing over in Afghanistan." And we found out later that was what it was, that they were literally doing missions to learn to practice being able to fly over these valleys and dive down on these short runways and drop stuff for our troops that were in the Korangal Valley, and then get out. Because they would come down literally, and they would let their touch and go. Literally, you come down, you open up the back, and you come down, and you go down to as close to, and you touch down, boop, but you don't stop. You touch down, and then you just gear up and punch it, and you drop a parachute out the back, and that parachute catches the wind from the turbines, and it yanks everything out the back door, and it just skids on the ground. and comes to a stop, and you just take off. And the military drops shipment from the military. If you've ever seen that happen, it's one of the freaking coolest things you'll ever see in your life. They literally come, hit the ground with their tires, and you see dudes just pull the chute and literally pull the small one and throw it out the back door, and it just pulls the chute, and they move out of the way, and everything in the cargo bay just goes whoop, boom, right onto the ground, and they just tilt up and take off, and everything slides out and is just deposited, drops on the ground, but it doesn't come from a distance in the air, so it doesn't break and destroy everything. Tanks, Jeeps, everything, man. It's so fucking cool. And they just go boom, and they go almost straight up, and then they just get the hell out of there. If you've ever seen that happen, it's one of the coolest things to watch. They don't show it on movies very much, so it's hard to know about unless you've seen it in real life. You see kind of a little bit in movies, but it's not like that. In the movies, they have them like drop out and parachute down to the ground from like 30,000 feet. That's not how they do it. Not at all. They literally go and hit the ground, and then they punch it, they tilt up, and everything slides out the back, assisted by parachutes and on rollers, and it just slides out onto the ground, and they just punch it and just do a wheelie and go almost straight up and get the hell out of there. And it's beautiful to see him practice, and it's beautiful to see it happen. You'd have to be like, I guess, brought up in the military or love aircraft to be as enthusiastic about it as I am. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to start this, and you guys give me a sound check again and let me know, right? I know you guys are talking. Keith's in there talking now, right? I've seen huge aircraft fly in unison. Isn't that beautiful, bro? Right? Take away stuff, right? Have you ever seen them do that? The CIA used to do that all the time here in the United States, Keith. I don't know where you're from, but they showed that in the Batman movie where they literally would fly by, and you could be in the air on a parachute, and they could fly by and catch you and keep going and just drag you, and then you just literally make your way into one of the doors to get in. They can pick up anything off the ground in the same way. You suspend it by something, and they fly by and just grab shit and take it off to get it out of there really quickly. They don't usually do that with humans, but they do it with stuff when they're in a hurry to get stuff out. So Keith, you said you've seen that, right? That's kind of cool. So people and animals, very big kind. Yeah. When they literally pick up, I've seen them do that with helicopters too. They used to use the UH-111 for that. Now they use the CH-53s because they're the big pigs with the big engines, the two biggest helicopters that we have in the United States. And the Hueys, they don't fly. Those are all in movies now because they're so old. But the UH-111 and the Warthogs, they use those for the same thing where, yeah, they pick up stuff and fly off. You've actually seen that. That's cool too. When you see them doing that, you can see that in movies. They do that in movies where they show you picking up an elephant and a helicopter and flying. Those are kind of cool. Okay, I'm going to do a sound check and we'll get started here and get back on topic. But my point of all that was that, you have to realize that the modus operandi, and then we'll get back into raw, of what they're doing hasn't changed. So when you become aware of it, this isn't something new. It's just new to you, and you're not aware that they've always been doing this. People go, you noticed that these people, oh, you know what? Did you notice something? I want to ask you guys something right here. This is actually serious now. And this actually happened to me live yesterday. There was a shift. I wasn't going to talk about this, but now I decided that they're up there is telling me it's okay. There was a shift. I, at least, experienced a shift last night in timelines. I don't know if you guys did at all, and I haven't looked around to see what's different for me. Sometimes it's just me that I shift and not everybody shifts, but then there's times when like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people around the world shift at the exact same time. Let me explain to you what happened. I'm over here in the United States in California, and I'm watching the San Francisco Giants last night playing, and I think they were playing the Dodgers. Don't quote me. I believe they're playing down in L.A. They were in Los Angeles playing against the Dodgers. And I'm watching the game, and they're going into like the fifth inning, and it's the top of the fifth inning because the Giants are away in L.A. and San Francisco Giants are down in L.A. And I'm watching, and the score is 2-1 Dodgers. Okay, and I watch as the baseball players are on base and they're going, and I watch one guy got a walk, got on base. And then the next guy came up, and he got hit by a pitch, got on base. He had a runner on first and second. The next guy got up and hit the ball down the line to the left field, down the third base line, and the guy that was on second base made it home and scored, and it was 2-2 tie. And then they changed the pitcher because the pitcher was not doing well. So the score was tied up 2-2. Okay. And I'm watching the game and it's 2-2, and they go to a commercial, and there's still runners on first and second, or first and third. Okay. Because the runner that was on first made it to third. The runner that was on second made it home, scored a run. And the guy who hit the ball made it to first and didn't go past that by the time they got the ball in to stop the other guys. So you had runners at the corners, runners at first and third, and they changed the pitcher. When they came back, there was no one on base, and they took a run away. It was now the same inning, and it was the beginning of that same inning, and that didn't happen. And it was no longer 2-2. It was 1-2. And they had a different scenario that had happened, and that one guy got out and got the other guy to score, but the other guy didn't get hit by the pitch. Okay. So there was a different scenario of what I just watched happen. And there wasn't 3 guys on base. There was only 2 guys on base, and they threw one out while the other guy scored. And so it was, in fact, when he scored, it wasn't 2-1, it was 2-0. And now it's 2-1. That is not what I just watched during the commercial, before the commercial break, which was only about a minute and a half long because they were changing pitchers. When they came back, it was only 2-1. And I said, why isn't it 2-2? What the heck's going on? What changed? Now there's no one on base. And so I literally went on my phone and I looked at my phone going, what just happened? Did he try to steal and they didn't show it and he got out? But there's not 2 outs. So what's going on? Why is there only 1 out and there's not another runner scored? And now they have different guys coming up to bat, not even the same order that they were in before. What the hell just happened? And the guy that gets up to bat hits a home run, a solo home run, and now the score is 2-2. And I'm like, wow, the same exact score is the same outcome that just happened before, but a different scenario happened to get the same score in the same inning. I'm not kidding you. I was watching it live. And I went, what did I miss? So when I looked at my phone, the scenario I had just watched happen to get the score to 2-2 and them changing the pitcher did not, in fact, happen anywhere in that game. And now it was a different scenario, and it was 2-1. And the guy that came up to bat was what was his name? I can't think of his name right now. I can see his face. I can't think of his name. And he hit a solo home run, and the score ended up 2-2 at the end of that inning, just like it did when I just got done watching it. But it wasn't done in the way that it was done, and all of that was gone. It was not there and didn't happen. And I witnessed it happen a minute and a half, didn't change the channel, didn't fall asleep, wasn't asleep when it happened, and it changed. And the Giants went on to lose the game. But I have no idea what happened in the other reality. But I was in a different reality. And in that reality, there was 2 guys on base. And the third guy hit a base hit, scored one of the runners. And there was a man on first and second, or man on first and third. And they changed the pitcher. When they came back, the man on first and third was gone. The run was taken away. And then the guy that came up to bat hit a home run and got the score back up to 2-2. And they just kept playing, and no one even talked about. And usually if something happens, the announcers will go, okay, so what you missed while you guys were away was they changed this because he didn't touch the bag and he was out and blah, blah, blah. None of that happened. Nothing was spoken. It was as if what I just witnessed happen did not, in fact, happen. And I actually said out loud, I just shifted. And the weird thing is, I felt something and thought it was an earthquake because I live in California. I literally felt a shift in my energy, and I felt almost like I was grounded during that commercial break. I noticed something, and that's the only reason why I was paying attention, even more so. I literally was sitting there like, when you think of change, think of speedy oil change. That's the guy's speedy oil change. has been the sponsor for every time there's a change in pitching staff. The guys on television for the Giants say, well, every time you think of change, I think of Speedy Oil Change. They said that because it was a change in pitcher. Watched it happen during the commercial. I was sitting there watching commercial, and literally everything around me went boom, whoop, and shifted. And I went, whoa, was that an earthquake? And I looked around and nothing was vibrating, like the earth just moved. And I went, oh, maybe I grounded. Because it's the same feeling you get when you instantly ground, or you come back in your body when you're out of body and you have an out of body experience and you come in too fast. You come in and you go, whoop, bam, and you slam into your body. I hit not quite as hard as that, but I actually hit and thought, wow, that's weird. I wonder what I was thinking just then that grounded me. And then we come back to the game and I'm like, why is the game different? And then my brain, my spirit said, pay attention. Something is different. And that's when I looked around and saw the game. I haven't looked at other things. Usually when this happens, I don't talk about it right away. And then what happens is Peter Coyle, who's in the audience right now, he finds somebody, because I'll usually tell him, dude, I went through something that was different and there was a change. Did you sense that? And he's like, yeah, let me look into it. And the next thing you know, somebody will post it where they'll be talking about it. He'll find it and he'll link it to me. And then we start finding out, we start communicating with other people. We start finding out what now we know is changed from the way it was. And then everybody freaks out and they think, oh my God, it was the bad guys playing with CERN. It's actually not. They're scared to death because they don't know who's doing it. It's like when they see the UFOs, they don't know who it is. And they're like, well, it must be China. But then the ramifications are they have something that we can't detect on our radar. And that scares the hell out of us. So they don't want to admit out loud that it's something other than that. They'd rather not. But the same thing happens and they go, oh, that's just the Mandela effect. You guys can look that up if you don't know what that is. That's literally when they say there's a whole bunch of you that just are crazy and you just have this false memory. Weird that people all around the world from different walks of life that don't communicate with each other have the exact same memories that are different, that only that group of people have, that has changed, and they know and perceive this event happened and now here it has not happened. And if it was just like somebody was crazy, honestly, if you know psychology, then it would be localized to an event, to radiation, to a certain food, or a person with a hormonal imbalance, not individuals, millions of individuals worldwide who have never communicated with each other and live in different continents. And they all have the same memory. You're like, oh, you just remember it wrong. That's all. Like Chick-fil-A, right? Do you guys remember how that was spelled before it's spelled the way it is now? It used to be spelled CHIC. Some people remember there was a lawsuit and they got sued and had to change it. The majority of the people on this planet say, no, it's never been that way. Some of us go, I don't remember a lawsuit, but I remember it being spelled CHIC, not CHICK. Oh, no, that was changed because, that's a chick. And a chick is a derogatory term for a woman. I'm like, I agree with you. But they were meaning that because a baby chick, that's where that word came from for women, by the way, is a baby chicken is called a chick, CHIC, right? There's a word salad that we talked about last week where they changed the words or take a word that doesn't mean anything that's harmless and make it derogatory so you can't use that word anymore. And it's on the word police are telling you can't use it. So in one reality, Chick-fil-A was CHIC and got sued. And cancel culture tried to get them. And I remember that happening because they were talking about Chick-fil-A didn't like gay people. I don't know if you guys have that memory in this reality, but that happened in the reality that I was in about 6 years ago. And but there was I don't remember a lawsuit. But then that doesn't mean that it didn't happen that way because, I don't know everything, right? So I just don't remember the lawsuit. So it may have happened and I just was unaware of it. But the majority of the people on this planet right now will tell you, no, none of that happened. Chick-fil-A has always been spelled CHICK. No, not for some of us. Not for millions of us. Millions of us have a different reality where it wasn't spelled that way. That's just one example. I could go on all day. I could do an entire show on this. Okay. So, right. So, yeah, what is Rick referring to here? Right. Rick said exactly 15 years ago, I gave up drinking is what he's trying to say. Good for you. I gave up drinking a year and a half ago. I gave up drinking, and I don't know if this was she's referring to what Cassie's referring to that he was referring to. 1 month, my ex challenged me for 5K. I stopped 1 day short because of something I said. Because of something, I don't want your money. You're 13 years later. I brought it up a few times, and she swears that she never said that. Right? Okay. So yeah, you have the memory of that conversation and that event happening, and she says no. Now, I've had these conversations with my ex-wife, not that specifically, but things where I say, "Do you remember when we did this?" And she's like, "We never did that." And I'm like, no, we went. It was you and I. It wasn't like I was having an affair or I was with someone else. And because I've done that when I was younger and I was dating more than one woman at a time. I did that a couple of times where I was seeing women, but I wasn't sleeping with them, but I was trying to figure out who I wanted to be with. And then I would confuse one event with that. And that's when I went, you know what? That's just how guys get caught for doing this stupid shit. I need to stop doing that. So it didn't take long. So it wasn't that. This was when her and I were married. And then we had conversations and went and did things. And in this reality, she has no memory of that. None. And it's not like, oh, well, you guys just got older. Some people just say, you just got older. She just doesn't remember things because it was so long ago. And I'm like, well, if that happened and it was like, say, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, and we're old now, I can see that that would be something that you wouldn't remember, right? So literally, I can see that, Keith, or Rick. I'm sorry, I'm looking at Cassie talking to Keith. I can see, and so I realized now when I put my glasses on that she was referring to Keith, not Rick. But I like what Rick was saying, because there's other things that happen. Some of that you can say, well, they just didn't have any memory of it and didn't care to remember it. But for the most part, when you see big events where other people are witness to it, like that with these Mandela effects, that's part of the shift that's happening that is being done on purpose. This is not nefarious. It's not evil. This is part of the things that those of us who have come here, guys, as I'm telling you, giving you some information now, that those of us who came here to fix the shit that they've done to this planet when they screwed it up, we're fixing things and it's changing timelines. And so what's happening is that you're not aware of it until you have the ability to be aware of it. Timelines shift all the time, just so you guys know. There's a temporal war. It's called the temporal war. There's a war that's going on through time, as well as a physical war going on in this reality. Most of you don't know about that, and some of us don't talk about it very often. Okay, but there is. It's called a temporal war. That means time war. It means there is a war. And in fact, if you guys ever watched Doctor Who, which is the longest running television program in the history of our planet, still on the air now, that is about the Time Lords and a war that's going on between good and evil throughout time, behind the scenes, right in front of everybody's face. That was being told to you for a reason, because that's really happening. Okay? That's just like my book, the Orion Rising. Orion Rising, the book is a what if about what if there are aliens and what if there was a war going on right now in the physical that no one sees, like the Matrix. And it's a true story. It's actually happening in real life currently. 90% of you out there have no idea about it. And then it's hinted to you in many things. That's why I bring these things up. In the Men in Black, the entire concept of the Men in Black is happening right before your eyes, and you don't know. I know this because I do it. Okay. And literally, Jamie Watson Wolf, one day, about, 3 or 4 months ago now, maybe longer, one day while doing a reading, she laughed and said, "You guys are like the Men in Black." I'm like, you have no idea how much we are like that. Even the comedy part of it. But the truth of what Kay said to Jay in that first movie, when he was trying to go after the bad guy and he was shooting at him with the little noisy cricket, which turned out to be like the strongest gun they had, but it was this little teeny thing. And he's like, "I'm going to break this thing. It's so freaking small." He shoots it and it knocks him. The recoil knocks him like 20 feet back and blows up like a big hole and everything. And then they have to get a containment team to get everybody, because he does it right out in open. And he says, "Man, we don't have time for this hiding bullshit." He says, "There's a Carillion cruiser with a death ray that's going to destroy the earth in an hour, and we have to get this guy." And he yells at him. Kay yells at him. Tommy Lee Jones' character yells at him, at Will Smith, and not like at the top of his lungs, but very sternly, very curt. He says, "There is always a Carillion death ray or a Carillion cruiser that is going to destroy the earth every day. But the only way that all of these people go about their little lives is they don't know about it. And when I saw that movie for the first time, I laughed, and other people were like, well, that was like one of the kind of serious scene. What were you laughing for? And I'm like, because you don't realize how true that is. Because it's true. The fact is with prophecy, and this is why you don't hear a lot of people talking about doomsday prophecy. It was very popular in a certain time in the past, until a lot of us got control of those people and said, stop, you're actually teaching the narrative that the negative people want to be taught on this earth by giving them this prophecy. And they're like, I'm just telling prophecy. And I'm like, but it was like stitching with the Anunnaki. It was planted. It's done to propagate fear. You need to stop propagating that. You need to stop telling people that. And enough people started realizing that they shouldn't be telling negative prophecy. The world's coming to an end. And because even Nostradamus, and I said this last week, and I say this all the time, read Nostradamus. Read what Nostradamus said before Nostradamus started giving you predictions. Nostradamus said, all of these things that I am about to tell you do not need to come to pass, do not need to happen. This is a warning of what could happen in the future if you don't make changes. No one tells you that when they're talking about Nostradamus. No one gives you that information. Why? Because then they want to preach that information, make money off of you by coming up with a book and then trying to give you their interpretation with their small minds of what they think Nostradamus was talking about and get paid for it. Not a joke. And then they need to have the controversy of, well, it's either you believe Nostradamus or you don't. And then you have the naysayers who get paid just as much money to come on the air and say, this only happens if you get lucky. And if you wait long enough, I can predict that the world's going to come to an end because someday it's going to come to an end, which is not wrong. So don't get me wrong, which is not wrong. But yeah, right. Maddie says a fake ET invasion. They have that planned. And the only reason they haven't rolled it out is because enough people have been talking about that as a false flag narrative. Cassie says, yep, false flag narrative. That even kids, I was surprised Cassie was telling me that she was, I think it was her nephews or friends of the nephews or both, who were young, 15, 16 years old. And they started talking to her about that. And they were like, yeah, it's a false flag narrative that they're going to try and roll out. So many people have talked about it that now if it happens, the majority of the population is going to look up and go, bullshit, this is all crap. It's a lie. And, they're going to, well, we have to start killing people so they know that it's not a lie. People are still not going to buy it because enough people have talked about it over the last 20 years, at least in this country, to where the kids are going, yeah, that's bullshit. So the government can't try it. They have to try something different. But my point is, and the point of that is that's what they do. They come up with these dialectics where I use that term instead of using the Hegelian because that was the modern day version of Plato's dialectic, but it was perverted after that by Karl Marx into the Marxist dialectic, which is the version that they're currently using. But no one will tell you that because they don't want you to know that it's a Marxist ideology that they're trying to propagate. So they go back to Hegel and say it's a Hegelian dialectic. And I'm the only person that will actually say to you, no, it's not. If you look up the Karl Marx dialectic, it was based on Hegel's dialectic and perverted into the Communist Manifesto, which is exactly what they're using around the world right now. So they're not going to tell you on the news, this is the communist dialectic, the Marxist dialectic, because you're going to go, wait a minute, what? Marxism? Communism? I need to look this up. And then you're going to go, it is the Communist Manifesto, and you're going to fight against it. So then they say it's Hegel's dialectic, the Hegelian dialectic. And when you look up, and I've done it myself without telling people the truth of it. I've just said, because it's a generic form of what a dialectic is. But the truth is that's also a perversion of Plato's dialectic. So if you want to realize what the original dialectic was, you should look up Plato's dialectic, the Platonian dialectic, instead of the Hegelian dialectic. But the truth is if you come forward to the current dialectic they're using, that form is the Marxist dialectic that Karl Marx took from Hegel. I explain that in my book that'll be out hopefully later this year, not the beginning of next year, but it'll be out when it's supposed to be out. And that is entitled The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. And I explain all of that to you in there. And so the truth is that you have to realize that all of this is what Raw is talking about. The modus operandi of all of these people is to do this, to literally confuse you at every turn by all of these things. Not one. They've bought into the ancient Middle Eastern philosophy of death by 1,000 slashes or death by 10,000 slashes, depending on which doctrine that you look at. That goes back to Nebuchadnezzar and all of them back there in Baghdad, literally. But that an enemy that appears to be of massive strength and huge and resource. This is what all of the terrorist organizations are actually applying. Is this dialectic that I'm telling you about? What they do is they literally have said we can't fight them in an open war. They have more resources, more money, and more troops than we do in shock and awe, and they'll murder us all. They have better technology, all of those things. If we go to war with them toe-to-toe, we can't win. So they're fighting a guerrilla war. It's how the United States won their freedom. It's how Australia won their freedom. All these people decided to fight a guerrilla war instead of going toe-to-toe with the English, and they were able to defeat the English. Well, they're taking that, and they're doing the same thing. They were being taught by the IRA, who understand that, and they're using that philosophy to teach them how to win a guerrilla warfare, because that's how the Irish got themselves free, was doing the same thing. They only went into open war in 1912 during the Easter Uprising, which if they knew the real history, they would have never talked peace, because the British government was literally 11 days, you can look this up, 11 days from surrendering to the Irish, because they were out of money, out of troops, out of gasoline, out of oil, and had nothing to replenish or continue the war against the Irish. And the Irish still had plenty of oomph and money and power and stuff. And they just thought that because of how large the empire of the UK was, they just knew they were fighting against an undefeatable foe, trying to fight for a stalemate to then be able to get freedom. And now they regret it, because it took them a long time to vote themselves free. But they were hired by this cabal of this evil empire to then train these terrorist organizations in that same tactic, because they could never catch all of the members of the IRA to this day. They are the only organization on the face of the earth. And then you'll see a lot of the Arabs will tell you the same. Those who had that dialectic of slashing, dying, killing your enemy by 1,000 slashes. And literally that means that you don't try to kill them in one blow. You literally slash them here and slash their foot and slash their leg, and you cut them or arteries and you have them bleed out. And so before they realize it, then you're killing them, and they don't know you're killing them because you're doing it in all the different places. It's the art of war. Fight them where they're not. And you literally using that subterfuge to get close to them and do damage. And this is what they do with information, is my point here. And this is what Raw is telling us about. They do the same thing with words. They do the same thing with all of your belief system. All of this is part of that manifesto, which is a dialectic that came from these other dialectics as they were perverted into the modern day to be used by these people in a certain way to get the outcome that they desire. And so that's the one that they're using currently is the newest version, and it's actually done by Marx. And I show you that in my book, that literally Marx gave credit to Hegel and said, no, this is the dialectic that we're going to use. And they literally took his idea and changed it into the Communist Manifesto. Okay. And that is being applied today on all levels to you by these people, taught to them by the Orion Crusaders. Raw is warning you about. That's currently still going on. The Orion Crusaders are gone. They've been gone for over 1,000 years, longer than that, possibly. I'm not going to get into those details, but they were gone as fast as they got here. But their footprint, their fingerprint, their damage is ongoing still, because they gave the knowledge to the children of the asylum that were in fact insane and in self-serving. Those people have been now using all of that knowledge over and over and over and over to continue and propagate their power and wealth to their 1% elite families of this world. So they're not winning. They've lost. That's now the children are running the store, and they have to keep you. That's necessary for them to keep you, absolutely 100% desperately necessary for them to keep you in the mindset of a child. Otherwise, it becomes so simple and obvious to you that you see for them what they're doing. And many millions, and we know that it's becoming billions, thank the gods, of you out there in the world are starting to see this. And you're like, oh my God, they're just blatant. They were used to hide it. No. They never hid it. You just couldn't see it. And now you can. It's because you have chosen to be in service to others, and you have chosen to start your ascension the way you were supposed to, because you have the ability to do that now, because enough of us have come here to change the dynamic and the balance to get it back to where it's supposed to be, to allow you to have that ability, to allow you to find your knowledge by doing inner work in yourself. And throughout time, you had people telling you this over and over and over and over. The Rothschilds, that actually means red shield. That's actually part of the cabal. That's one of the families that changed their names when the English throne, the people who are ruling it now, changed their name to Windsor. Okay, and you should look up what it was before that and where their family comes from. They changed their name to Windsor during the First World War because their original family name was a German name. And they had to distance themselves from their cousins who they were fighting a war against. The Rothschilds did the same thing. Rothschild means red shield. They changed their name. They all go back to the Habsburgs and the Hohenzollerns. All of those families that came out of Europe that are currently the great houses, 7 of the 13 houses came from Europe, and the Rothschilds are one of them. Look up their name when it was changed and what it was before. And that's when you start figuring out the family lineage and how it goes to the Habsburgs, the Hohenzollerns, the d'Este clan, that goes to the Medici, actually the Medici first, and that Medici goes back to the d'Este and the other bankers who I can't think of their names currently. Those families are all the French, Italian, German, Austrian families that literally came from the Middle East that were ruling North Africa, all of that, Egypt, going all the way around into the Holy Land, and all the way back to Nebuchadnezzar and those people when they created the banking system that goes back some 15,000, 20,000 years and some further back than that. It's the same families that goes to Atlantis and the fall of Atlantis, and they spread out over the world and populated the world and took control of the world. And there was a war of the gods that's in the edicts, the Vedicts from the Hindus, who had kept a really good history going back 10, 20, 30, 100,000 years, like the Egyptians, before they burned everything at the Alexandria and banned all the scrolls, which we know have gotten a lot of them from the Dead Sea Scrolls, to tell the same story, that there was this group of people on the earth that were very intelligent and had elongated skulls, who had all this technology and flew in crystalline ships, and they weren't all evil. They were good and evil, the same dynamic, very similar to the one that we have currently. And they got into a war over being in service to self and in service to others, after they had already destroyed 2 planets, Mars and Maldek, and came to Earth because it was the only one that still sustained alive, and made this their base of operations. And then there was a war in the sky between the old gods fighting against these people because they were being evil and moving out to the universe. Does this sound familiar? Some of this sounds familiar to you people who don't even realize that you have the knowledge of this war from somewhere in your past. And they were defeated. They defeated the other people and they left. And then there was a civil war on Earth, and the good people defeated the evil people and left them here like a penal colony on this planet, which is where they get the idea that this is a penal colony. Left them here just like you guys in Australia were. You were there as a penal colony. They were left here on Earth as a penal colony, but they didn't have their ships and technology anymore. It was taken from them, but they had the memory of it. And then they used the knowledge that they gained again to upgrade themselves and take control of this Earth. And that was when those Yahoos got here from Orion, that came here and easily found the people who were evil and gave them the information to take over the world and build the societies. And that is literally what they've done with that information. This is what Ra is telling you about. I knew all of this prior to ever reading the Law of One. And I have people, when I talked about this on air, people that I knew said, dude, that's in the Law of One. And I said, I don't even know what that is. That was back in 2017. What is the Law of One? You need to read this. There's 6 books that tell exactly what you're talking about now. And I was like, this is this information that I know to be a fact. And I don't know, I can't tell you how I know it. I know it from the Akashic records. And there was other people in there. So I was noticing in history that other people were kind of hinting at this. And so I was talking about it out loud. And everyone said, you need to read the Law of One. I read all 6 books and went, yeah, okay, I get this. I need to tell people about this because it's telling what I'm trying to get across to them. And this is somebody else besides me. When I tell it to you, you either go, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about, or I bruise your ego and you go, oh, this guy's just arrogant and thinks he knows everything. Right? So if I have the Law of One sitting next to me and I'm reading it to you and playing it for you, then it eases your mind. You don't get mad at me and you go, well, this crazy stuff, the Law of One could have just been made up. And then if I tell you what I know, then you go, well, you just read that from the Law of One. No, I actually have people in my life that are currently friends on Facebook and family members that will tell you I've been talking the way I'm talking now almost my entire life. I talked like this to my father when I was a boy, but he told me to shut up about it and don't tell anybody on the outside of the family. And in fact, don't even tell your family members until they're in a place where they can understand it. To this day, the majority of my family members think I'm crazy. My sister Deborah, who now doesn't think I'm crazy, thought I was crazy until 5 or 6 years ago. That guy, he's crazy. He talks about crazy shit that is just, he's making it up. And then she started, got off drinking, got off drugs, started her life, wanted to have a life, started becoming more spiritual, started learning things, unlocked things. And then all of a sudden, she said to me one day, all of a sudden I started realizing I was looking at things and I was seeing hearing you in my head. My ex-wife did the same thing. She was sitting with her mother one day about 3 years ago. And she actually texted me and called me and said, oh my God, I got to tell you this. We're literally watching stuff on television and these guys are saying things and we're going, do you know that this and that and this? And she says, and then I went, oh my God, these are like Leonard's words. And her mom says, well, I don't remember him ever telling me that. So it's not like he influenced me. He may have brainwashed you. And, they were laughing about that. And they were like, no, oh my God, maybe the stuff what if the stuff he was saying wasn't as crazy as we thought? Then they started listening to my podcast. And then they were like, oh, holy crap. I now think like that. I did the same thing with other people. Okay. In my life, I remember my father saying things. I was like, that guy's crazy. He can't be, he's my father and I love him, but he can't be what he's saying because what he's saying is just crazy. It just can't be that. I don't want it to be that. You don't want it to be that until it is. And then you can't unlearn it. Right. So let's continue with the law. And you'll see that everything that I've said is going to play into what we're talking about here because it always does, because this is what Ra is trying to warn us about. So let's continue. Right. I know you guys are saying a bunch of stuff in the chat. If I start reading that, I'm going to get caught up in what you're saying. Right. Ezekiel writes about it. Yes. The measurements were given to build. Oh, yeah. You guys are really going down that path, aren't you? But you're right. You guys are all absolutely right. Everything that you guys are talking about, Anna, what you're saying, Maddie, what you're saying, Cassie, what you're saying. You guys are having this whole conversation. I'm talking and nobody's listening to me because you guys are having this whole conversation, but it's all right. You guys are having a good conversation. Right. Well, I'm sure you guys are listening to me because most of what I'm saying, you guys are going off of what I'm saying down another path. But that's yes, no, it's the truth, right? You have to look the stuff up. And once you start doing that, you start realizing that, like Cassie was saying right here, the last thing Cassie said, that we come here during this time to co-create this new template of Earth's energy and remind the people that we are all connected and all one. Thank you, Cassie, for saying that. She's absolutely right. This is why we've come here. There's millions of us. There's a bunch of us that came here together. And most of us are awake now and know it. Then there's millions of souls that came here and billions of souls that came here to do the same thing. And some of you, when you tune in, you find that, right? Maddie says, we're going down that rabbit hole. Absolutely. Okay. Anna says, I'm listening, kind of. Right. And then, right. Yeah. And then Rick says, I'm listening, Captain. I wasn't saying that as if, how dare you guys not listen. The whole purpose of what I say is to try to get you to start thinking for yourself. So the fact that you guys are, and you're discussing things and talking to one another and going down rabbit holes is what I'm intending to do. So don't think I'm going to get offended. I was just saying, I was like, oh my God, none of you guys I'm talking and you guys are all talking about something different, not listening. I didn't mean that in an egoic way. I meant that in a good way because you guys weren't just sitting listening to me going, what's this next word, right? The truth is, like Cassie was saying, the expansion of your consciousness is why I'm here. The expansion of your consciousness in a positive way. Peter's laughing with tears, right? I know, Peter. I love you, brother. So literally to expand your mind to get you to start questioning everything, anything and everything. Question everything, because everything that you think you know is untrue or a lie or has been perverted from the actual truth. Everything. That is what they have succeeded in doing on purpose. And they changed the words to a negative word and take that negative word and tell you it's a positive thing. Okay. And it's not. And then they've overlapped their control into society with all the words that you use that you think are words that give you freedom. I am a free citizen. I am a sovereign citizen. That word citizen actually means slave. Look up the base root etymology of that word. Okay. We don't need borders because I'm just a human and we're all humans and we're all on this planet. I agree with you. The problem with that is that the evil people seek power and they're the ones that are controlling these fictitious borders that they keep. Now, here's something I want to point out. They keep telling you that we shouldn't have borders, but they're the ones who created the borders. Here's another example. Okay. You have these very same people. Oh, now I'm going to go into a place where they're not going to want me to talk about this. I'm going to push as far as I can with this. Okay, guys? They're starting to, what my concept was getting in there. Okay. I literally was watching this unfold on television. What they're doing is they're literally, like here in the United States, they're literally telling you, we have a border. We are a country. So you have to pay us taxes and elect us in charge of this country. Okay. And to define a country, that means that there are physical borders, not invisible ones, and that you have laws that say the only way you can come into this country is that you have to come in this way, and we have to know who you are, and we have to be vetting you. And they're telling you that's what we're doing. And then you have people literally filming with drones and cameras the fact that there's more than 10,000 people per day coming across the border in one place illegally, just one place, El Paso, Texas. 10,000 people a day are coming through El Paso, across the border from Mexico since last Friday, per day. And then when you take that film of every single day of them and you go to the very people that are in charge of this government right now, the progressives, and you say, what is going on at the border? They say, what you see there is not what's really happening. So they're telling you, don't believe your eyes because they're lying to you. You're not seeing 10,000 people come across the border. But we are. It's right here on film. We're seeing 10,000 people come. No, these are not the droids you're looking for. You do not need to see their identification. they can go about their business, move along. And these same people are saying, we have this crazy problem that the crazy governor of Texas is bringing these migrants that have crossed the border illegally. At the same breath, they're telling you that 10,000 people came across the border. And the Texas government doesn't have a place for them, so he's busing them to their cities because they claim to be a sanctuary city, so you can have them. And now they're going, that crazy governor should be arrested and impeached because he's bringing 10,000 people a day or 5,000 people a day to New York City and dumping them off. And he's going, yeah, those are the 10,000 that came across the border that you guys claim didn't come across the border. And they're going, he's lying. And he's shipping these people against their will to our city. But then he's going, so would you admit that there's illegal people coming across the border then? No. These are not the people that are coming across the border. Well, then who are these people? Are we just inventing them? Are we rounding them up off the streets? No. Those are migrants that are coming here because they're being prosecuted somewhere else. And it's okay, so they're illegal migrants coming across. Can we agree on that? No. There's nothing wrong with the border. The borders are closed. There is no illegal aliens coming across the border. Okay, then there's no 5,000 people a day showing up on your doorstep then. Problem solved. Why are you talking to me? Wait a minute now. You can't do that. You can't bring these people here. What? They're not real. They're not real. You said no one came across the border illegal, so I'm not moving any illegal people illegally onto your city. So I don't know who those people are. They must be migrant workers, like you said, coming to New York City. Has nothing to do with me. If you say there's no one on the border coming across the border illegally and our border is sealed and controlled and all these videos and all this people standing around telling you that there's 10,000 people coming through and you claim none of that's happening, then the people that are coming into your city isn't happening either, are they? Wait, we have an emergency. We need to do something. Do you see? So what they're doing is the very people that are telling you nothing is happening are now complaining that something's happening. But what they're doing is all of that is a ruse. All of that is a game. Because what they're doing is they're putting them into cities where they literally are giving them addresses, giving them driver's licenses, which makes you a citizen because you have an ID now, a current ID that belongs to the United States of America. And they're actually automatically, they just passed a law in the state of Pennsylvania that you can get, no matter where you come from on the planet, no matter how you get here, if you show up in Pennsylvania, we'll give you a driver's license and register you to vote. So the definition of a citizen of the United States currently is supposed to be someone who was born in the United States. But what makes you a citizen and gives you the power as a citizen is that you have a driver's license and you can vote. Never mind that you're not paying into Social Security or any other money that helps anybody that you're all supposed to pay taxes for to be a citizen. Never mind that you weren't born here, so you're not eligible to have a driver's license or an identification provided to you by a state or a government of the United States, a sovereign nation. Forget about all that and that you're not reporting to the federal government of who you are, because why? They want you to go to work for them under the table so they don't have to pay for your health benefits. They don't have to pay for your retirement benefits, and they don't have to pay for you if you get injured. So they don't have to pay workers' comp on you. But they want the slave labor. So this whole thing is a ruse. The governor of Texas is in on it. He's bullshit. And he's pretending to be a non-progressive. He's pretending to be a Republican who is a conservative, and he's bitching because there's too many people coming across the border. Do you see all the Republicans in the Congress and the House voting against this to do something about the border? No. You see 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 bitching about it. Those are the ones that are actually want to do something in service to others. All the rest of them want their slave labor, want their money. They literally just caught a Democratic lawyer, and I'm only using that because he just got caught. They caught this guy who was a progressive, and literally they said he was laundering money, and he was literally quid pro quo. Was in charge of giving money to Texas or to Mexico. And you'll only get that money if you pay me money to vote so that you get your money. And so they paid him in gold, and he hid the gold in his couch, and he just got caught with millions of dollars of gold, undeclared gold, that he has no way of proving how he bought it, paid for it, or where it came from, that he's hiding in his house. And that it goes back to, he was paid off by the Mexican government to vote a certain way. So they got subsidiaries from the United States, a large $100 million or $300 million or $100 billion, whatever it was. And he got caught. Do you know what he said? He said it was because he was Mexican, he was a Latino, and that they don't want the Latinos to succeed. And the only reason that they busted him was because they were racist. Now, the truth is, he's probably right. The truth is, he's probably right, and that all of them are doing what he did, because when you look at them all, they're all doing it. And he got caught because he wasn't playing ball with them in some way, giving a kickback the way he was supposed to the upper echelon, and he was taking food off of the big table, and he was at the little kids' table, and he wasn't paying off somebody he was supposed to pay off. So now they out him. Their own people are outing him and making him look bad so that he'll get in trouble because he didn't play ball with them. He didn't give some money to somebody he was supposed to give the money to. He kept it all for himself. Guaranteed. So what he said, everyone's like, oh, he's just saying that because he's playing the race card because he doesn't want to get in trouble. No, the truth is, just like Epstein, when he got caught, he said, you guys are all doing it, and raping all these women and forcing them to have sex, and I'm going to tell on all you guys. And then guess what happened? He miraculously killed himself in his cell. Was that Epstein or was that the other one? And then the other one, I don't know if it was, now I'm trying to remember which one was which. One killed himself, but for the same thing, because he said he was going to tell everybody. And the other one went to jail and got paid off. And he was the one that was raping all the women as a producer. And he said he was going to tell on them too. And guess what happened? They cut a deal with him. All of that disappeared out of the news. And where is he now? Is he actually in jail? Do you know that? Has anyone seen him in jail? He just disappeared. Nobody got to know what happened to him. Guess what? I'll bet you he's living in fucking Beverly Hills back in his house, and he got paid fat to shut up, and they probably killed him in his sleep, or they got him back in line. But he's no longer doing the job he did, but he probably got paid $100 million, so he doesn't need the job anymore to do what he was doing. And guess what? He's probably still having people come into his house, and he's raping little girls until you actually go and put him in a prison and make sure that he stays there. But when you do that, they go, you guys are all doing this, and you're just pissed off at me, and that's why I'm here. I'm going to tell the whole world. And then they kill him off for it. Every guy that comes out and says that gets killed. You watch this guy, they're either going to totally throw the book at him, or everything's going to go away in a huff, and he's going to retire, and he's going to disappear, and he's going to go into Mexico or some other country, and no one's going to know about it. And that's what's going to happen because he's telling the truth. The truth is he pissed somebody off, didn't fucking line their pockets the way he was supposed to, and he got greedy and was keeping it for himself, and they caught him, and then they leaked it to the press, and the press jumped on it. The press only jumps on something when they're told to. So why did all of a sudden that went out there? So you guys have to realize this. I sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist, but the truth is when they get in trouble, they start telling you the actual facts of what's really going on. And they use that as a threat to get to the other people who are doing that exact thing to them. And then things change behind the scenes and they cut deals and then it goes away. Okay. It's just like with Hunter Biden. They were literally going to give him immunity to everything past, present, and future, that he can't go to jail for anything. The judge caught him. And now all of a sudden they're going after him and arresting him for the gun problem that they were going to give him a free pass on. So they're either going to do that and then have his father pardon him, or they're just going to string it out until people go look at something else and get back on Donald Trump or whatever else they want you to look at, so they can steal the money from you without you knowing what's actually happening to you. And they give you these things to fight for. This is my point. Okay, so you pick a side. They have you either brainwashed to become a Democrat, or they have you brainwashed to become a Republican. Those of you who are out country, that's a progressive or a conservative. They do this same dialectic around the world. There's only two parties, done for a reason. They are both parties, and both parties pretend just enough to attract some of you to either side, and you're only about 10 to 20% of the entire population. No one else wants to play. And you guys are the ones that they're using over and over to do this because you're allowing them to do so. And then they get you to vote for them by trying to tell you, I promise I'll be good, Dad. I won't steal your car again. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I was stupid. I was on drugs. There was a fire. There was a flood. Somebody threatened my life. Whatever excuse they can give you. And you go, you're right, son. I love you. It's okay. Like Elvis. Look at what they did to Elvis. Rick said, like Elvis. Look what they did to Elvis. Okay. Elvis, they had him, he was doing all this stuff and they had him propped up on a bunch of drugs. They did the same thing to control Adolf Hitler. They had him on a bunch of drugs. They were controlling him. And when he was no longer useful, then look at what they let Elvis get fat. All of that was done because of the steroids and the drugs and all the stuff they had him on, and they were controlling him. And when he decided he didn't want to be controlled by them anymore, all of a sudden his life was over. Okay. That's what they do. Look at what happened to Britney Spears. Britney Spears, I think, has had a mental issue most of her life. But if all these things that are being told by the Me Too movement, that they're passing these people around and raping them repeatedly over and over and making them do things and sodomizing them and making them sing about certain things and putting them shit in their videos and all of these conspiracy theories, if they're true, then it would explain why all these women in Hollywood and singers and men go out of their fucking minds, lose their minds, have all these breakdowns, and then everyone says they were on drugs. They were on drugs. They were whacked out of their mind on drugs. And then they change their life, and their career almost gets ended, and then they have a miraculous recovery. Why? How? Because they were going against the grain, and they were being punished. And when they signed their new contract and cut a deal, all right, I'll tell you what, we'll let you make albums and do this stuff, but you're back in line and you don't tell the world about it. And you have no choice. Because if you're in service to self and you want power and you want fame and you want money, you have to do what they tell you to do. Otherwise, your career is over. They don't allow you to do anything because that's of the way of this place. Right? And Keith says Britney's a clone. I've heard about that and read about that. It's very possible. But if she was a clone, she would be back making music and out there not dancing around kind of crazily in scant clothes on Twitter. So, and it's possible because I do believe that they are cloning people. I do believe that they have the technology and they have had the technology for a long time. So I think there's some nefarious shit going on with cloning. I do believe that. They just haven't figured out a way how to marry the clones to AI yet. They'll do that to get AI to the point where you don't realize it. And just so you guys know, speaking of that, Keith, thank you for bringing that up because it triggered my memory, right? Not dead, hidden. Right. Agreed. Keith says, not dead, hidden. He says, look up Dave the Rave. Yeah, I've heard about that, right? Many of the big stars that were removed are still alive. Agreed. That's why we like what they said in Men in Black. No, Elvis is not dead. He just went home because he was an alien, right? So literally, now let me go down this road, right? So now you got me off track and they're telling me that I can't go down that road. Okay. So if I can word what I was about to tell you before I went down the road of that, talking about the clones and AI. Let me go to this. They'll let me tell this. Do you guys remember that woman? That got taken off the plane about a month ago here in the United States because she was like, okay, that motherfucker is not real. And everybody thought she was out of her mind on drugs and drunk. Do you know they tried to interview her to find out what she saw? And what did you see? There was a guy, you said that motherfucker's not real. You guys saw the blonde woman, pretty, and they removed her from the plane because she was flipping out because she said that guy in the back was not real. So when they went to interview her, I saw the interview. And do you know what she said? I can't tell you what I saw. Okay, so they bought her off. She saw someone who was not real. I don't think it was an alien. I think it was AI. I think that they were testing new generation AI literally out in public. and had literally a robot on a plane. And she happened to probably start talking to him. She had been drinking, you could tell that. But I think she started talking to him and realized something was off. I don't think she was tripping and off her meds. She won't say that. But she says, I can't tell you about what I saw. So someone stopped her from telling the world what she saw when she made the statement, that motherfucker is okay, that motherfucker is not real, and it freaked her out. The realization that the person I was talking to back there, and she was pointing at the guy, he is not real. And you guys need, and nobody would listen to her because she's drunk. She's obviously off her fucking rocker, tackle her. She's crazy. And the news had her on to find out. So what did you see? What was it that freaked you out? Her response was, I can't tell you about it. That means someone stopped her in some way. That means that she signed a non-disclosure agreement with someone who has power and money. And now she's gone and nobody's talking to her anymore and asking any more questions. And all of the news doesn't care anymore and doesn't want to hear about it. Nobody went, wait, what did she see? What did she see that got her freaked out to say that motherfucker is not real? So was it a guy? Was it a girl? What did they say? I can't tell you. Okay, so either there was an alien on board and she realized, but she didn't say that person's not a human. That person's an alien. She said that motherfucker is not real. I watched that over and over. Not real. She was talking about AI. She was talking about someone who was pretending to be a human that was in fact a machine, and no one realized it. And she must have probably looked at the guy or the girl, started talking to them, and then went, wait a minute, something's not right. And then it scared the fucking shit out of her. Pardon my American. And she got up and was trying to get people's attention. And they were like, oh, this is drunk, crazy chick. Get her. Tackle her. Okay. So literally, not that person's not of that. Oh my God, that's an alien. That's not what she said. When you're scared, you don't say things like peanut butter, purple. Right? You don't do that. They only do that in the movies with Captain Jack Sparrow when he goes, right? People don't do that in real life. In real life, they tell you, even drunk people tell you what's going on in their head. She said that motherfucker is not real. I don't know what he is, but he is not real. I'm telling you, you guys need to listen to me. And everybody was focused on her. Even the camera, they didn't show you. I'm sure there's cameras out there, guys. I'm sure somebody went, what's she looking at? Because everybody that films stuff that you see on fights and all that stuff, they don't just focus on one thing. If someone's pointing, oh my God, a T-Rex, they look with the camera to get it on camera. But nobody did that. They only show that one person's view out of everyone on the flight, one person recording that only focused on her and never looked with the camera where she was pointing. Okay. And I'll guarantee you that everybody got debriefed off of that flight, and everybody had their phones taken from them and deleted content of anybody who filmed whatever she was pointing at, whoever she was pointing at. And they didn't interview anyone else. No one else from the flight did I see on any news station where they said, what did you see? What did you hear? What was she talking about? All that went away after she said, I can't tell you that. It all went away, and it was done after 2 days. No one spoke about it again. And that's it. Dropped. The only way that happens is it was ordered, because that was ratings. That kind of shit gets ratings. Everybody wants to hear, what did they see? What did she see? What was she talking about? That's the stuff that would get clicks. So why would the news agencies turn that off and not want to talk about it? Okay. So, and the key said that whole thing was set up, but it was noticed by the so-called woke too fast, so it didn't work. she was in a fake mask, and it was all jive, right? Even the plane was a prop. Oh, so you're saying that none of that actually happened at all, and the entire thing was just to set up acting, and then it never happened, and there was no plane. And well, I guess it's possible, since you could claim that, and people couldn't believe that if they want. I don't know the answer to it either, because I don't know. I didn't talk to anybody else. I haven't investigated it, so I don't know, right? So, okay, I'm sorry. What, Leo? You have a question for me, Maddie? I apologize for that. Let me go up and find out what do you make of those pop stars blinking sideways like reptiles? Is that your question, or is there another one above that, Maddie? I haven't seen that, but I will say this: there are reptiles that live on this planet. They actually live in it. There are many races that actually live here, on and in the earth. There's some in the water. There's many races that live inside this planet. Not all are nefarious. They're just like us. Third dimensional races have the dynamic of somewhere between 3% and usually 15 at the max, people that are in service to self or evil, and the rest of the population is in service to others. It is the dynamic everywhere in the universe, give or take, that change of 3 to 15% in negative in service to self, and that adjusts the people in service to others in 3D reality everywhere in all the verses currently. That is the dynamic that works. Okay, so all three-dimensional races have that dynamic within them in some percentage. So if you have another race of people that are grays, some are going to be evil and most of them are not. Okay, and the evil people are going to seek power and control, just like everything works exactly the way it works on this planet. And every planet that is third dimensional, fourth dimensional, and then to some extent, fifth and sixth dimensional. Okay, just the same dynamic. The dynamic changes by unit, meaning each planet or solar system has its own set of ecosystem as far as where that ebb and flows to or from. Okay, you don't have anywhere that is 100% evil and only 10% good, but although that does exist, but it doesn't exist in it depends on the universe as part of the multiverse, and that is really going to fuck you up if I tell you that. Okay, so you understand. Okay, so there are people that are integrated into this society that are of other races. And there's some reptilians that are the same size as us humans, and there's some that are the scary ones that are 7 to 14 feet tall and really smelly and scary. But they think we're smelly and kind of scary too in our own ways. But you have to realize that some of what you see on television is not, in fact, a glitch in their programming that they have to fool you into believing that they're human. Some of what you're seeing is just glitches in the programming of television, and it's just playing a trick on your eyes. But that being said, some of what you see is temporal distortion. Okay, so that's why if you watch the Buckaroo Banzai Cross the Eighth Dimension, they show you in there that some of them give off a scent that gets into your cerebral cortex. Some of the stuff that you see in these movies and songs and poems are trying to tell you actual fact. It's not made up. And people say, well, that was just sci-fi. They just invented it. It was a really cool story. And then some of us who actually know what's going on laugh and go, whoa, that person who wrote that knows what's actually going on, because that's actually part of reality. Some of these reptilians, to survive, some of them, like we have different geckos and things here that can change their appearance of their skin to blend into their environment so that they can use that as a defense mechanism for camouflage. Some of these races of people have that ability of a chameleon to do that very thing. And some of the people who are evil in those races use that to their advantage. And some of what you guys are getting glimpses of is, in fact, part of their technology not working properly for you at that particular moment, and it gets your attention. So I know that sounds crazy, but that is true. And it can't be 100% scent based, because if you watch someone on TV, that scent is not in the air for you to hear or smell. I'm sorry, that's not in the air for you to smell to talk to your cerebral cortex. However, there's other methods, sound, vibration, that they can give off. Cats give off a purring, that house cats, that you pick up, and that purring actually lowers your blood pressure of your body. When that cat touches you and purrs, that vibration actually soothes you, calms you down, lowers your blood pressure, lowers your heart rate, and makes your body balance and your chakras balance. Just having a cat purr on you. They're aware of that. They're aware of that. The cats are they are the underworld, or the inner world, or the spiritual protectors of your soul. Dogs are the physical. They protect your body. So cats, their purring radiates to your soul. Okay, so now my point of this is, that if a cat can do that, and our geckos can change colors and hide right in front of your eyes, and we've proved that, what makes you think that there isn't a species that can do the same thing and utilize that skill for nefarious reasons? So some of what you are seeing is glimpses of that actual thing happening. So some of those crazy theories where people say, I'm telling you, that's a reptilian. Some of those are. I've looked into it. Being, I don't know if you know who I am. I'm the creator of Ancient Aliens Worldwide on Facebook, the first and biggest group of that name on the earth. We have 300,000, almost 301,000 members worldwide. That's the largest alien hunting group on the planet. The only thing that's bigger than that is MUFON, the website. Okay. And I got permission from Sukalos and Prometheus in the beginning, back in 2012, when I created that group. There was no name. There's no group called Ancient Aliens. Now there's like 30 of them. So I changed it back in, I think it was 2015 or so. I changed it to Ancient Aliens Worldwide. I still own that. And there's a group of people I love them to death. They run it because they love that entire thing. I'm not paying them because I'm not getting paid. It's completely volunteer. And they've been running it for years now, beautifully, I might add, and I leave them alone. And I let them run it. It's a life of its own. My point is, I've been alien hunting my entire life. I literally, and I used to do this, I used to authenticate photos and videos in a think tank. Some of the people that I still talk to were in that think tank. Before Ancient Aliens Worldwide became public, we were a think tank, and we did stuff for people, and we authenticated videos, and I did that as a profession in real life. I did that for 12 years in real life, and I did that. That's why I did it professionally in real life, because I was doing that already behind the scenes. So people would they still do. They send me a video or a picture, and they say, "What do you see here? What do you think about this?" And I tell them, when you send it to me, don't tell me what you think is on there. Don't tell me what you see. Don't tell me what you think you see. Ever. Never tell me that. Because the only way I'm going to organically figure out what you have on that video is I have no idea what I'm looking at, and I have to figure out what it is that you're trying to tell me or filming. And then I will say, these are my findings, what I found. What am I supposed to be seeing? And that's when I'll ask you, oh, well, I think that's an alien spacecraft, or I think that's a UFO, or I think that's a ghost, or I think I have people to this day that send me, sometimes live. We're ghost hunting and we're over here in Ireland. And I want you to tune in live. I need your help for something. That's not a joke. I still do this stuff. Not as much as I did, a few years ago, but I still do this stuff. Peter GV, if he was here, he'll tell you. We also work with cops and psychic areas also, right? So Peter Coyle would know about some of this, okay? So the truth is, some of what you see out there is real, and it is true, and it is just as crazy. Right. And when I tell you these things, like, okay, there are other humanoids that look just like us that are orange, blue, indigo, green, purple, right? All the things, like when you talk about Shiva and how they're blue and purple, these different gods, those are real people. They exist. I've seen them. I know where they live. That's not a joke. There's a lot of us out there who do. That's not a joke. So a lot of what you are seeing is a cloaking device, but it's not always. Sometimes it's grays. But yeah, a lot of the reptilians have the ability to shapeshift, and they do it. And some of them are becoming famous, and they are doing that stuff, and no one knows that they're not really human. There's a lot of people that live in amongst you currently that were not born on this planet. I was born on this planet, but my spirit's not from here. I didn't grow up on this earth. I did in this lifetime, and every lifetime I've been in these bodies. But there's some people that are here physically that weren't born here physically. And they're just walking around amongst all of us, and no one is aware of it. A lot of people talked about it here in the state of California back about 6 years ago when there was a fire in Paradise and it burned down the entire city. There was a lot of people out here that were talking on the internet about there was an entire group of people in that town that were in fact aliens that were living in the town, and that they got into it with the governmental system here, and they tried to eradicate these people because they wouldn't pay the tithing they were supposed to pay, and they tried to murder them all off, right? And they would have you believe that that was the reason for that fire, was to burn these people out and kill them in secret. Same thing going on over in Hawaii not too long ago. That's a land grab for one, but there was something else behind that you guys don't get to know about right away, that you'll hear later on and think it's a conspiracy theory. Now, I will tell you that some of those aliens, that was true here in California, and some of those aliens did die. And I will tell you that the majority of them did not. Happily tell you that the majority of them did not. They had escaped, got away, and they were not murdered in that fire. But that was a true story. And that was considered a conspiracy theory at the time. And so I looked into it to find out, wow, man, that sounds too crazy to be untrue. Is it real? And I looked into it, and then I looked into it spiritually. And that was actually more, I got more answers by going upstairs to get the answer and going to the Akashic record. But I can't get involved in that, because if you don't have access to that knowledge, then you're just going to think I'm crazy anyway. Right? Keith, you know Peter. You know what I'm talking about. He says, Peter knows much, but he doesn't say much. No, Peter knows a lot more than he says in public. Way. I know, because Peter and I came here together. He's my brother. Way more. You should hear the conversations. You should be a part of the conversations we have off air. Right? Cassie knows what I'm talking about. Should be a part of those conversations. Peter knows way more than you'll ever realize he knows. He doesn't say a lot of it, but he pushes me, guys. Peter pushes me and tells me I hold back too much. And Peter's like, Leo, you need to get out there and say this. Leo, you need to say that. Leo, you need to go and tell you this. Tell them that. So he pushes me to say things that I've, because you have to remember, guys, that what we have done in this life, we have had to have been invisible for all of these years. Peter's a few years younger than me. I'm 56. He's like 52 or 53 now, something like that. The things that we were doing, we had to be invisible until we didn't have to be invisible. And Cassie will tell you, because she's one of the people that's trying to pull us out of our shells. Peter's laughing. He knows I'm telling the truth. We have had to be invisible and can't tell you everything that we know, because nobody was ready to hear it. And you guys, a lot of you think we're crazy now. And then all these people, 52-ish, that's what I thought. I was like 51, 52. I'm like maybe 53, 54. And I'm like, no. I remember my brain was saying 51, 52. So literally we had to be silent and quiet and be invisible and do the things that we were doing. And now's not the time for that anymore. So this is why I'm coming out and saying outlandishly crazy shit. Wait till my book comes out. People in the world are going to say I'm making shit up and just insane, because they have to. They'll have to say that, because I'm going to change the belief system. I'm not doing it by myself. I'm not the spearhead. I just happen to be writing and releasing a book first. There's a bunch of books going to be coming out around the world, and people are already saying this on podcasts. But Cassie had to start kicking me in the butt, and I told her, you need to keep me pushed out there, because she's putting herself out there as well. Peter's starting to do that as well. But we've always been behind the scenes and hidden until we're not supposed to be. And we still have the instincts to keep quiet and not tip our hand to anyone And they keep telling us from the other side and from here, it's time, start talking. It's time, stand up and be seen. And we're like, we have spent many lifetimes hiding. But the plan was now is the time. And we know that, but we have to change our culture and everything about us. All of our instincts tell us don't do it. They're going to kill you because that's what they used to do. So our instincts are like, shh, just say what you can and be cryptic and be esoteric. That way, when people figure it out, they figure it out. Well, now they're like, no, you're supposed to just start screaming it to the mountaintops now. Right. And so we have those of us that have been doing this shit behind the scenes for many lifetimes are scared because they've killed us over and over. And how many times we were murdered for what I'm saying to you right now? Look back in history. Socrates, they made him commit suicide by drinking, I think it was wormwood, because he said, the earth's not flat, it's round. That's it. Kill yourself. We find you guilty. You have to drink poison and die. Think about that. Because he said, the earth's not flat, it's in fact round. How dare you? That's heretical. You're a heretic. You must die for your sins of claiming the earth is round. That was 3,500 years ago. Okay? I'm older than that. We are older than that. We've been here longer than that. That's why I loved it in True Blood when the leader of the Vikings was a 14-year-old boy, and he was the oldest vampire that had the whole coven of vampires were his. He was their grandfather who started the whole coven. And these Christian zealots were trying to murder the vampires. So they got pissed off and decided to go and stop them and show them that you guys are just mortals. Who the hell do you think you are trying to murder us? We've been here longer than your great, 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 great grandfathers. And so when they went into the church and these evil zealots who were trying to seek power and control went up against the vampires and decided that the vampires needed to be under their power and control. They went in, and when they got there, the lead guy, who was the evil dude who was in charge, was praying now for his life. And the little boy king comes in at 14-year-old skinny Viking who is like 10,000 years old or older. And he listens to him and he goes, yes, your Jesus. You are praying to your Jesus. You know I'm older than him. He says to him, you know I'm older than him by about 8,000 years. He says, I missed his crucifixion, though. I was too busy to attend. That's what he said to him. I laughed. I thought that was the funniest thing. I was like, oh my God, that is so badass that somebody wrote that into the script. Yes, your Jesus, he says. You know I'm older than him by like 8,000 years. You know I missed his crucifixion. I was too busy doing other things to attend. That's what he said. Now, granted, right after that, he got tired of being alive. And after he secured his coven again, he got tired of being alive and decided that he needed to die because he was immortal. And the only way he could die was if somebody chopped off his head, drove a stake through his heart, traditional stuff, or stay outside during the sunlight. So he decided that he was tired and that he'd been around too long and that he wanted to go. And so he went up on the roof of that church and got a lawn chair and sat down and waited for the sun to come up and told everybody else to leave me alone and go inside. And he sat there and watched the sunrise. And the last words before he died, before he burst into flames, was, I forgot how beautiful the sunrise is. Anybody who ever saw that series, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, I forgot how beautiful that was. And then he died. So, but he actually said, oh God, I forgot how beautiful that was. Very human, very human-esque. So my point is, going back to that, I know you guys are off on a tangent or thinking I'm off on a tangent. You have to expand your consciousness to the realization that what you see on the surface as humans is only one race in trillions and one in many. that occupy this earth. At least 7. Some say, oh, there's 99,000. Well, I mean, there's many that have been here. Yes. There's praying mantis people. They look like they're giant praying mantis bugs. Look just like a small mantis, only they're 9 feet tall, 7 and 9 feet tall. They are a mantis with the hands up and the long legs and the tail and the head with the crazy looking eyes. You take that little teeny mantis and you expand it to be as large as 7 foot tall. And those exist. People in their brains thinking, talking, living in that body. Lizards, or whatever you want to call them, right? That's where some of the dragon things came from, were the the draconian races that live inside the earth. You ever notice that all the stories of going to kill a dragon was going into a cave to fight the dragon? It was never, except for in like Tolkien's thing where the dragon flew out and was killing people. But then when you talk about that dragon flying in the air, like Quetzalcoatl, right? And a few others, the Chinese dragons, all of those are eerily, when you listen to the description, eerily aircraft. Okay. So you have these dragons that they give you this description of what a dragon looks like, and the European dragon, including the Japanese dragon, are if you take away the long body and you give them a more bipedal look, it's exactly what the Draco looks like. If you put them in aircraft and have them flying around and killing people because people were attacking them, going into their cave and killing them, then what you see is one race fighting against another race being told in history. Misunderstood technology, right? Maddie says misunderstood technology, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Raw left the building with Elvis. Raw came here to help. Raw was here at a time when other groups of people were also on this planet helping societies. And one of the things that was erased from history was in South America, there was a group of people who, the information is still there. You can look this up. I forgot what they were called. I don't know if they were like the Olmec or something that was down there, Peruvian and inland from Peru. What's Peru today? And those people disappeared off the face of the earth as well. But they weren't the Aztecs and the Mayans. They were another group of people. But the Aztecs and the Mayans also did the same thing. But the Aztecs and the Mayans don't have this information, but then these other people do. And I forgot their name, and I apologize for that, but you can look this up. If I find it, I'll post it again. But these group of people who, just before they all disappeared off of the earth, they changed their religion. And what they talked about was, oddly, what they talked about was, not oddly, but it is to you if you don't know, where spirituality and the mindset of all the people and all the things that they left behind told that this place is in fact an illusion, and that we are supposed to be here to have an organic experience of being alive in the third dimension, and that we are supposed to then graduate and come to the realization that living in the flesh is the wrong way, and that you're supposed to have a spiritual awakening and ascend. And they were teaching that to their entire population. And then the entire population disappeared off the earth, never to be seen again. Sound familiar? This is what has been eradicated from history, and some of these things are not there. But when you go to places like in Peru, at these different places like Sacsayhuaman and a few others right in that area of northern central Peru, you'll find that some of these places were intentionally buried only to be found now, and that the people were painting a different reality about reality. And it was a people that were talking about something that went on this planet, Pumku. Yes, Maddie. I was hoping that someone in the crowd would know what I'm talking about and say it. So I purposely left that out. Pumku for one. Yes. And that information is telling a different narrative about what's going on here in this place. And it appears that the people built it and then buried it on purpose so that other people wouldn't find it until the right time for people to find it. Sound familiar? These scrolls will be locked up and no one will understand them until way in the future, when this people in the future will understand and be able to interpret these scrolls. What if people did that with an entire city, with an entire map that is chiseled in stone, that is the same scrolls, Nazca lines, right? Same area of the world, right? Not too far off. Actually, it's in Nazca in Turkey. Still, Nazca lines, right? The zone of silence. There are so many, yes, but we didn't know what they were, and they sat there because they were obscure. They were esoteric to evil people. They did not know how to interpret them. So they just assumed they were just writings, kids carving in a cave, playing around. And then later on, and they made sure that people maintained them until the appropriate time. And then all of a sudden, people started seeing them and investigating them and trying to figure them out. And the same thing reoccurs with all of that information from all around the world. And they're literally talking of a time prior to the arrival of these people that we refer to wrongfully as the Anunnaki. I'm not going to go down that road again. I go down that road every time. But there's a reason, because the Anunnaki are, in fact, the Orion Crusaders. Okay? So literally, that in knowledge is the knowledge that they brought here and implanted to the earth to take over. These people were aware of that when they got here, and they hid a bunch of stuff and made things esoteric right before your eyes, that knowing that the knowledge that I'm leaving cannot be interpreted by people in service to self. They can't. Because to interpret it, you have to have unlocked within you the only thing, the knowledge, to do so. And the only way you can unlock that knowledge to be able to read and interpret what is being said before your eyes is to not be in service to self, in fact, to be in service to others, and spend a certain amount of time with that, moving upwards in your ascension to unlock abilities and knowledge within yourself. When you do that, these things become simply so clear to you that they literally seem like a child could read them. In an instant, they go from being scrambled to, oh my, how does not everyone understand this? It is so simple. It is right in front of my eyes. And then you start looking around with different eyes, and you have the eyes to see now, and the ears to hear, and the mind to be aware. All these words come from all these Bibles and tomes about prophecy. And then all of a sudden, you start looking at everything that you've ever looked at before in your life, and you start seeing different patterns, different knowledge. And that unlocks more and more and more and more, and that continues. I don't think it ever ends. I don't believe that it ever ends. I think there's a finite ceiling in this reality that those stories can help you with, but I don't believe that that's the end of your knowledge, because if it were, we wouldn't have the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, 11th, the 12th, and the 13th dimension to move into. And even then, if you knew everything, like I said before, if you knew everything and the creator of the universe knew everything and reached the end of the internet, there would be nothing more to learn. Therefore, all of this would be shut down. We learned it all. You guys aren't going to give us anything new. Everybody come home. Well, that's not happening, which means that it's never ending, which is a good thing, because then we're propagating ourselves, right? So think about that. I mean, some people would say we're a computer on tilt. We've lost our minds. We're out of our mind. And we've scrambled our minds into a trillion different individuals, and we're out of control. and we're spiraling through the universe now like a madman. If you are a 3D thinker and you are thinking of physicality and money and power and wealth and greed, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's the point of this place. If you are not, you need this knowledge. So some people say people that are enlightened, they need the quest for knowledge. They need it to be there because that's all they have. And so that's how they try to, again, use science to tell you that spirituality is all just ego. And that the ego is literally just creating all of this knowledge to perpetuate itself. And you're all just crazy and you're not really focusing on anything. And all of it's fake and it's all being just made up. Well, if that were the case, then we would all have our own individual story and we would never unlock the same knowledge. We wouldn't. Everybody would have their own spin on it because we all see things completely different. Okay. We all have our own spin on how to inform you of it because we can only tell you what we have reference points to reference for you from the knowledge that we actually gained. That doesn't mean what I'm trying to tell you isn't the same that someone else is trying to tell you, but they're telling you in a different way because they have a different way of telling you the same thing. And the proof of that, and this is why we do the shows, and we're going to be doing one coming up. I don't know when. I'm trying to put it together, where we show you people from around the world in different walks of life have unlocked the same knowledge. And we do it with psychics. And you could sit 5 mediums in a room, and those 5 mediums could read the exact same person, and they're all going to interpret from the other side a different way to interpret the same knowledge, because you have a different reference point and a different thing means to you what it doesn't mean to somebody sitting next to me. An example of that is that the Long Island psychic, she says to people, I'm getting from the other side, they show me a person or a woman in wearing a apron with a rolling pin. And that to me means that they cooked food or like to cook or work with their hands. Okay. So she has come to realize that image in her mind is what tells her from the other side. And they tap into that, like what Raw's doing with Carla, tapping into Dawn and Carla and being able to speak to Dawn in terms, in verbiage, in language that he actually understands because he is a nuclear physicist. Okay. So if this whole thing was a plan, Carla would have to be just as intelligent as Dawn and know exactly what Dawn knows. As a nuclear physicist, she would have to have the same education to be able to do that. Moreover, if they made this entire thing up, they're both geniuses and they should have gotten the Nobel Prize dozens of times because they invented things and claimed things to be true that we did not know about, could not prove, and discovered 40 years after they said it. Just like Bob Lazar saying, I used to work for the government and aliens were involved and they gave us this particle which was called un pentium, and we were utilizing that for spatial time travel paradoxes and traveling faster than light. But there was something wrong with the equation, and the gray aliens that gave us the information were acting like the Vulcans did to the humans in that scenario and not giving them all the information, trying to slow them down on being able to travel around the universe because they wanted money or power over them to do so. And everyone said he was crazy and that he never worked for the government and he was lying and he made up his entire life and there was no proof he even existed as a person. But they left him alone and never stopped him from continuing to say what he was saying. And that was in like 1984. And then in 2015, all of a sudden, the scientists discovered this brand new particle and they called it un pentium. And it had all the properties and did exactly what he said and was the exact atomic number on the periodic table of elements that the crazy guy 40 years ago invented and made up when he said he was working with aliens. So either he was the genius and should get the Nobel fucking Prize, and it shouldn't be called un pentium, it should be called Bob Lazar pentium or Bob Lazariantium. Okay, is what it should be called. If he in fact was the first person who came up with it, because he said exactly what it was, what it did, where it fit on the table of elements, all of that. They claimed he was crazy and he made all that up. 42 years later, they invented and discovered the exact particle, didn't change the name, didn't change the placement, didn't change what he said the properties were, yet they still said he was crazy and all that alien stuff he made up and he never worked for the government. Well, who the fuck did he work for then? Because somebody had a particle that, according to the mainstream academia, didn't exist for 40 years that he claimed was there. I don't even want to talk about that now. Never mind that now. Never mind that now. He was crazy then and he's crazy now. Well, hold on. What about the particle that he said was there? He got lucky. He got lucky. He got lucky that he discovered 40 years before you guys knew about a particle, that he had it, but you guys stole it from him so he couldn't prove it to anybody, but you didn't even change the name of it, which means that it was already named that. Otherwise, why would you guys have called it exactly what Bob Lazar, the crazy guy, called it? Unless he was right and it was already called that and you guys just told the world that it was there. Think about that. Okay. So they're trying to whitewash and say that none of that took place. These are not the droids you're looking for. You do not need to see their identification. They can go about their business. Move along. Move along. That's what they did 40 years ago. And now it's kind of hard to say that he made it all up when they discovered the very particle and it didn't change anything about it. It's 187,000 million % exactly what Bob Lazar said in 1984 and all the way from then until now. Think about that, right? So these other things are my point in what Ra is saying, right? All right. And I'm not going to continue. I apologize. I'm not going to continue. It's already 6 o'clock. I've already been on here for 3 hours of ranting and raving, right? But I love you guys and we'll continue. But think, man. Question. Don't believe a word I've said to you. Think I'm making it all up and go and look this stuff up for yourself because you're going to figure out you're going to go down that same road, right? At this rate, we're going to be 4 hours. No, Keith, I didn't see that. That's funny that you said that. Maybe I got that through osmosis. No, I could easily go 4 hours, but I got to get off of here. Right? I got to do dinner for my mother. I'm my mother's caregiver, and I need to do dinner, and I need to shut up. My voice only works so long if I keep talking like this, and then I'm doing damage to it. Now I can feel it. So I need to shut up and get off of here. However, I can go on forever. If you keep me going, I can go on forever. But I try not to. But on here, my purpose is to text you. My purpose is to test you. My purpose is to literally give you information that is going to make you go, I don't think this guy knows what he's talking about it. I need to go and look this up. Maybe what he's saying is true. What if what he's saying is true? Oh, hell no, he's crazy. My job is to make you think no matter what, whether you believe me, whether you don't believe me, whether you question everything I say, whether you agree with everything I say, is of no consequence to me whatsoever. I am here to help you expand your consciousness. You have to choose to do that. So if you choose not to do that and you think, and you wouldn't be here now, you would have probably already tuned me out after 30 seconds. Oh, this guy's crazy. Bye. I'm going to go swipe right, go to somebody else, right? Swipe left, whatever it is. On some platforms, swipe up, swipe down. So it just depends on what platform you're on. But the truth is, most people won't last that long if their ego gets involved or they think that I'm nothing but ego. That's their ego because I'm not. If you know me, you'll know that I'm not. In fact, with the knowledge that I have, I could easily tell people that I am the Christ. And I could prove it. Because anybody who has the knowledge unlocked knows that. But only the people who unlock that knowledge are the ones who won't use that to do that. It's the people who can't unlock that knowledge, that can only unlock a little bit of knowledge, who try to do that and try to tell you that they are somebody that they're not, to get all the followers because they want sex, they want power, they want money, they want clicks, they want control, all of those things that are self-serving. Those people who are in service to others truly will say the same things I'm saying and not let you put them on a pedestal in any way. Because we don't want that. I don't want that. What I want from you is I want you to look things up for yourself and go down that path so that you start your ascension or continue it. That's what I'm here to do. I'm not trying to get clicks or likes or money or power or control. I wouldn't be doing this. far easier ways to do that. I just have to tune in, right? You guys want to see us tomorrow? You should tune in tomorrow on YouTube on One-on-One with Jacqueline Taylor, and myself. I'm going to be on her podcast at noon Pacific Daylight Time. That's GMT -7, wherever you are on the planet. Tomorrow on YouTube, we'll be live, and I think she's going to share it to Facebook as well. We'll be live on her show. So on YouTube, I forgot the name of it. I just said it at the beginning of the show. I can't remember the name of her site. We'll have a link for you. So if you found me here, well, I'll make sure I link it in on my page on YouTube or on Facebook and on Orion Rising on Facebook, the link for where we're going to be live. We're going to be talking about that, the number of the beast, and how that relates to the human condition and what they were all talking about in history. We're going to ring out some of that tomorrow for only about an hour. We're not going to just run on like I do on here, and it's going to be her and I talking about that. I'm going to be her guest speaker, and we're going to we gave you a commercial. You can go and watch that. We gave you a 15-minute quick commercial talking about what we're going to talk about leading into that. We're going to have some images, and we're going to have some discussion about that, and then take questions from you guys to further that information to help you guys expand your consciousness into realizing that the narrative that they portrayed in these tomes was originally supposed to be a different narrative that they don't let you get to know about. But when you even look at it currently, you can actually see that what we're telling you is what they were saying, but their interpretation of those actual words has been corrupted so that you don't understand the message that was being taught to you. The Tower of Babel, for one, that's the fall of from spirituality into the human condition. That is the angels that fell. The story of the Garden of Eden and eating of the tree of life is the story of the ascension, but it's not the story what you think of the way it is there. And that's going to be in my book when that comes out. And I talk about that all the time. It has to do with the ascension oil. I have memes. I have reels, shorts on every platform that show you all of that. And we're going to be talking about that tomorrow for about an hour. So tune in tomorrow with Jacqueline and I. I'll be on her show. And I won't be talking for 3 hours. I love you guys. Have a great night. Some of you I'll see tomorrow. Some of you I'll see next week. Some of you will never be back. But those of you who will never be back are not here to hear this now because you already left hours ago. I love you guys. Have a great night. Thank you. Peter said, Oneness Project Life. Thank you. I couldn't think of that. Peter, thank you, brother. I couldn't think of that. Oneness Project Life on YouTube. We will be live there at noon tomorrow. That's 8 p.m. UK time, GMT -7. We will be live on air talking tomorrow about 666 and the number of the beast and what that actually means. Not the devil, but it does mean the devil, but it's proverbially the devil. We'll get into that tomorrow. Tune in, and we're going to take you at a high vibration, probably more than I did here, because whenever Jacqueline Taylor gets on, wait till you have Cassie on here and Peter when he does unleash that, Peter Coyle, when he does unleash that mind of his and starts talking, when he does that, people go, what the hell? They do the same thing when Cassie gets on here and when Jacqueline gets on here, and hopefully when I talk. All right, guys, I love you guys. I'll either see you tomorrow or I'll see you next week or I'll never see you again. Either way, I hope that you're on your journey and that you are choosing to be in service to others and starting to uplift yourself and rattle yourself loose from this prison of the mind for children that you find yourself in that is absolutely necessary for our organic experience and growth. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show.